I'd like to call Snoqualmie City Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Lissay, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, please take roll.
Councilmember Jeans?
Here.
Councilmember Ross?
Here.
Councilmember Holloway?
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew?
Here.
Councilmember Lissay?
Here.
Councilmember Sundwall?
Here.
And Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
And Mayor Larson is in the audience.
Also present.
Here.
And also attendance is Kevin Conley, who is attending as a registered parliamentarian as we get into doing Robert's Rules of Orders. All right. May I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? I guess let me start. I would like to change the agenda slightly to move the oath of office to be before presentations, first thing on the agenda tonight. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment?
These are the only ones on.
If not, all
Can you-
those in favor? Oh, sorry.
One moment, please. These are that's the only one that's on.
Okay.
The other one I think is pulled off together, the people one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of moving the oath of police officer oath of office to the top of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Back to the prime motion in place. Have I got approval on the agenda for tonight? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. With that, we'll move into the oath of office. I will ask that Mayor Larson come up and actually administer the oath. We have the family here for the ceremony. Ethan's mom, Dawn Cannon, will pin the officers' badges, and we'll have photo time shortly after the oath. Chief, if you will take it away.
A little shy tonight. Yeah, this is always a privilege to introduce a new officer and watch somebody have the badge pinned on and take the oath of office for this career that we've undertaken, and we have a good one here. Ethan Sarles is a new officer. He actually graduated from the police academy in December, and so he's been on the streets for a little while. He's looking like he's probably going to clear our field training program here in a couple weeks. You know, I've talked about it before, about not dropping our standards of hiring our law enforcement officers, and I'm not going to do that, and he's a prime example of that. I will tell you that in the background, there's some characteristics that I not only noted, but the background investigator did as well. His quotes were, he gets along with everyone, highly motivated and self-disciplined. He has never displayed any bias or prejudice toward anyone. He's confident, he's reliable, he's always on time and early, great personality, and I think one of the best characteristics, especially in this line of work, is that he's cool-headed, and that's what you need. And I'm very proud and happy that we have him added to our great police department that we have. Tonight, his mother, Dawn, is going to be pinning the badge on him after the oath of office. So Mayor Larson will be swearing you in at this point.
Ethan, if you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Ethan Sarles,
Having been duly appointed
by
by the mayor of the city of Snoqualmie
the mayor of the city of Snoqualmie
to the office of police officer
to the office of police officer
of the city of Snoqualmie,
of the city of Snoqualmie,
Washington,
Washington,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of my office
as prescribed by law
to the best of my ability,
and
and that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
and the laws and constitution
and the laws of Constitution
of the state of Washington
of the state of Washington
and of the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Ethan, congratulations, sir.
for us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now we'll have the badge pinning. The mother will come up and stand out front. You can let it hang. Looks good.
I know. Clear off.
Oh, boy. There's gonna be more of them.
Yeah.
We have Emma, his daughter's missing though.
Oh. Well, they're not gonna see me.
Mostly on the edges. Looks good. Trying to get that just. But then I look 25. It's true. Just kidding. Yeah, I'm older than you. Yeah. Believe it or not.
Thank you.
Where'd my pen go?
Okay, and we have full agenda, so, family, if you choose not to sit through the rest of the agenda, we understand. No offense taken. With that, we'll move into public hearing, presentation, and appointments. We'll proceed on with the Green Snoqualmie Partnership.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. The purpose of this presentation is to give you some information about a new program that the city has been running with its forest land in about the last 14 months or so. And this works. That's good. So, oh, sorry. Thank you, Dan. So I'm Phil Bennett, Urban Forester for the city. First slide kind of gives some background on where we've come from with our forest land, which is in start of 2016, we really didn't know very much about it. We didn't know how many acres we had. We didn't know what kind of condition the forest was in. We really didn't have a clue about how that forest land looked. And we've been in a big process since then, which I'm going to describe to you. Why we went down this road is we did some planning work in 2014. We recognized that we had some gaps in our management and we tried to address them. So several strategies in the Urban Forest Strategic Plan pertain to our forest land. We have a couple of big programs we run in urban forestry. One is street trees and the other really is the forestry or the open space portion of the city. Council adopted that plan and we began work on assessing that forest land. So I guess before I tell you about this slide, what we did in 2016 is we had a comprehensive assessment of all those acres done. We began writing a stewardship plan and we began a community stewardship program in which we got the citizens of the city to help us deal with some of the issues out there. And I think at this point I should mention there was a time in Snoqualmie where if you left the forest to itself and did nothing, that would be fine. Even if there were some kind of disturbance, logging, clearing, the forest would come back and there wouldn't really be an issue. But in the last 100 years or so, we've brought in many invasive species that have an impact on the forest. So some of these are Himalayan blackberry, English holly, English ivy, and they they overtake the younger trees in the forest. So you end up with a situation where as the older trees age and pass on and fall down, the younger trees are swamped. They're swarmed by these invasives and they don't make it. So you lose your forest canopy, which has a lot of benefits associated with it. I will say at this point that English invasives are the worst. So sorry about that. And then so in 2017, didn't quite know what to expect because it's the first year that we're running a big volunteer program. And I don't think a volunteer program of this size has been run in the city before. So we were hopeful, but we didn't really know how it would go. And it ended up exceeding all of our expectations. So some of our goals were we wanted to start the process of restoration on 5 acres, and we did 6.2. I thought we'd get about 600 acres. The plan that we wrote said, okay, 600 hours. The plan said the goal is 1,000 hours, and we blew past that and got almost 1,700 hours. And to give a sense of what that means, a full-time employee is 2,080 hours, so it's pushing up against that. And we had a total of 33 events where volunteers actually showed up. Citizens actually showed up on a Saturday or a Sunday and helped us to do this work. So it was a big year and a great success, and I'm pretty proud of that. Wanted to show you some of who showed up last year. And actually, the first 2 events that you see there were the first 2 events in the program, which were in 2016. And we had some families show up and come out. The second event at Ven Forest, it just rained and rained and rained for 4 hours. And those brave people stuck it out and dug up a bunch of blackberry and planted quite a bit that day. Moving to 2017, in March, we had a forest steward training event. Forest stewards are volunteers who go above and beyond the just coming out on a Saturday and doing some restoration. They actually are willing to get some more training and lead events so that I don't have to be there or a city staff doesn't have to be there. So of those people that you see in the top left there, about 5 of those people ended up volunteering multiple times in 2017 to lead events. And then we had an Earth and Arbor Day event and more restoration down there in the bottom right. We're lucky to have a really large and engaged youth component to this program, and 2 parts of that. Well, one part is the Mount Si Honor Society. Those kids have to do some community service as part of their program, and about 300 of them came out and gave us a hand, and we had a lot of fun in 4 different areas in April and May last year. And then the biggest event of the year was Green Snoqualmie Day, which is what we're imagining will be the first of 20 years of that event. And that was a huge planting event that occurred up at Green Snoqualmie Point, where you can see the bottom right picture, the plants laid out. They were all planted that day. I think we got 400 done up there. And we also had an event in the valley that our partners, Mountains to Sound Greenway, ran. Just to give you a sense of 2 things. One, where we worked in 2017, and then what's left. The red circles with the pink areas are all areas that we actually did restoration in 17. And then you'll see the shaded green areas. That's a good portion of the rest of the city's forest land. So I think it shows progress, but it also shows that we have a long way to go. And then I did want to mention that one of the best things I think about this program is, okay, we're doing forest restoration and we're helping the steward our forests, but we're also engaging the community in giving us a hand. And I think it goes back, I'll sort of paraphrase something that JFK said, you know, ask not what your city can do for you, but ask what you can do for your city. And a lot of times, you know, in my job, I get phone calls from people saying, Phil, I have blackberries growing over my fence. And I think for a second, I'm like, well, there's 26 miles of fence lines in the city of Snoqualmie, and there's one me. And I can't manage that. I have to find ways to engage with people to address some of these issues. And so I think that's the strength of this program. And then this slide, on the right, it shows those highlighted areas are all the city's forest land, except for the 175 acres that we just took from Quadrant, which I'm adding to this program. And then on the left, the other side of the balance, are all the organizations that are involved in this program, because to be perfectly honest, large portions of this were done by our partners. And really, it's about leverage through those partnerships. It's about, for every dollar we spend in the city, we're hoping to get 2 or 3 from our partners also doing the same work. So all of the organizations that you see on the left really gave a lot in 2017 to help make this happen. And then I wanted to let you know what we'll be working on in 2018. So just in the last few weeks, actually, I've been assessing the lands that we just received from Quadrant, and I'm adding those to the stewardship plan that was written, and it was complete in 17, but really does make sense to add that to the program so it's comprehensive. The picture on the left is the cover sheet of the stewardship plan, which is a significant planning document, and the kind of things that will give us is a roadmap of how to restore all 1,225 acres of forest land over a 20-year period. And it also has some pretty detailed information on cost modeling. How much is this going to cost us? How much is it going to cost our partners? How are we going to divvy that up? And what impacts will that have on budgets and staffing and so on? So in any case, when we're done with that, I'll be back to present that to you, and we're hoping that that will be adopted by the city. And then in the meantime, we will be running restoration events, and we'll be hoping to do more restoration this year than we did last. So we shot for 5 acres last year. We're going for 10 acres this year. And we're hoping to go over 2,000 hours of restoration. So we've had 3 events so far this year and many more on the calendar. So I would invite you to come and join us if you have some time. Pick a sunny day if you can. And thank you very much for your time. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Phil, when you presented this in committee last week, you gave a little bit of data on what would happen if we did nothing, and I was fairly astonished.
Yes.
I love picking blackberries in August and September, but I had no idea how destructive those could be. Can you give us, kind of paint us a picture of what things would look like and when if we did nothing?
Absolutely. So blackberry, that particular weed that you mentioned, can grow 12 to 15 feet a year in our area. And so, in other words, you can cut a blackberry to the ground and it will send out 4 to 5 vines in different directions and cover 14 to 15 feet with each one in 1 year. It'll do the same again the next year, the same again the next year. And not only that, it'll produce fruit. The fruit will spread through birds, and so it goes on. Truth be told, most of these invasive species are on the edges of our forest where disturbance has occurred, and they're starting to spread into the center. We are lucky because at this point they haven't overtaken a lot of areas, and like we see in other cities that are in this program. So for instance, City of Seattle are dealing with acres and acres and acres of nothing but blackberry. All the understory's dead, and it's a really tough fix. We're a little bit luckier than that. We're a little bit earlier in this process of disturbance and these weeds taking off. And so it's I can't give you a concrete answer for across the city, but what I can say is if we delay on dealing with some of these issues, we can expect acres and acres of this forest land to lose its understory and its regeneration within the next few years because of that phenomenal growth rate.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Phil, just a little bit. I participated in one event last year. I'm so glad that I did, not just for how it made me feel, but looking at fathers and daughters and families going out and doing something and having such a good time, a good family time. I just encourage you to rethink how you communicate it and let the public know that that's something that's coming up, because the more people know about it, the more people will have fun contributing to the city.
Thank you. And I'd like to respond, sir, too, and say that we do have a website, greensnoqualmie.org. So please visit that and see what events are on there. But you're right, we've got plenty of work to do with outreach in this early stage of the program. Thank you. Yes. So the website, it's on our, there is a link to that website on our city page.
So I have one other comment. I talked to my daughter, who's a Girl Scout leader, and she said there's a sustainability badge that Girl Scouts have to do work for, and your work is perfect for that badge. So I think that this would be an opportunity for Girl Scouts in the region.
It just turns out that I spoke to a Girl Scout troop in Snoqualmie last week, and they're doing an event with us on March 23rd. So I don't know if it's the same troop, but they're going to be doing a planting event. And they actually came to us and said, we would like to plant, we would like to buy the plants, which was, I just thought that was great, you know. So they're, I'm not sure if it's the same group, but we are working with the Girl Scouts in March.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
From a schedule standpoint, maybe since we can, I like having it on the record that you're here, and maybe what the upcoming schedule is. Can you give folks maybe a three-month outlook of terms of what is happening coming up soon, or?
I can give you what I think is the most significant event in the next 3 months, which is on March 24th, which is a Saturday, at the YMCA, 9 a.m. to noon. There is an orientation to the program, and it's going to serve two roles. Anybody who wants to learn about the program and participate can come along, and they don't have to commit to doing any of the work that day. They can just learn about the program, and it also is going to function as a forest steward training event, because I mentioned we have 5 people who've stepped to a higher level with volunteerism. We would like more people in the community. If we can, we'd like to train some more people to do the same in 2018. So I think that's the big one. And then another one would be Earth and Arbor Day on April 22nd. We'll have a joint celebration at Community Park. We will be doing restoration that day, and we're certainly hoping for a big turnout. So those are 2 that spring to mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm showing one on March 10th as well. Is that one? It looks like maybe Forterra's running that one. I'm not sure, but
okay.
On the website it mentions help restore stuff on March 10th. It doesn't say stuff, but that was my term. So is that one that's sanctioned by?
Yes, and I should mention that Forterra's role in this is they're very experienced at running the volunteer side of things, because they actually created this program in City of Seattle 12 years ago. So we contract with them for help in leading those events. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Chief, if you're, did we lose the chief?
Twin Peaks Days next.
There he is.
Twin Peaks Days. Okay.
Chief, you want to come up and give your year-end report?
Did we
Do Twin Peaks first or no?
We didn't miss one?
Did we miss one?
The Twin Peaks Day.
Oh, I'm sorry. She was trying to, all right, so hang on. So I will be brief on this.
She's
I
gonna be here
did manage
all
to
night.
sneak one in while Matt was gone. But to be short, whereas February 24th is celebrated by Twin Peaks fans worldwide as a day where the character of Special Agent Dale Cooper arrived in town of Twin Peaks. Be it resolved, I, Brian Holloway, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Snoqualmie, proclaim Saturday, February 24th to be Twin Peaks Day in the City of Snoqualmie. All right. And we have a member from the fan club here, Carl Reich.
You want to give him this one? In a nice pretty folder.
Let me give you this one to take back to the gang. And thank you for letting us participate.
Thank you.
With that, let's get into the Snoqualmie Police Department year-end report. Chief, if you will lead us.
It's pretty bad when you lose the police chief at a council meeting, I think. So I'll try and not get lost again. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, and me the opportunity, to kind of brag a little bit about this police department and what we've done over the 2017 annual year. So we have a little PowerPoint. I'm going to have a couple little videos. I do that because I don't have that English accent to keep you guys awake very easily. Kind of got a voice that just kind of stays monotone, so I'll do the best I can. But we always start out with, unfortunately, we start out with the command staff. And although I know we are if you will, I'll say humbly that, we're the top of the department. We really aren't. Captain does most of the work. And of course, Deanna, who is sitting in the back, she does everything for both of us. So she takes care of us. But I always seem to think that the people that do the work are actually the workers. The guys and the ladies that are out there doing the the work. And I always say that they should be the first one that we're acknowledging up there. But tradition says that we're up there, and there we are. So if you can go for the page 3. There's actually the workers. We have 4 sergeants on our department, and we have 3 corporals, actually 4. One's a SRO, but in this context, we have 3. And then we have 4 officers. So we have 4 sergeants, 8 officers that patrol this city. We have 8 officers that also patrol North Bend on that contract city. And they will at times work over in North Bend, and some of the North Bend officers will sometimes work in Snoqualmie. But basically, these are the officers that are assigned to the city of Snoqualmie. If you notice if you guys, the 2 in the back can sit, they're not too shy, I hope. They're the 2 of our new officers that we just picked up. They're going to be going to the academy. Jake and Katie, if you guys would stand up. They're going to be going to the academy in June. It was July 22nd. Now it's going to be June 24th, I believe. So we're going a little bit earlier than we'd hoped. It's still too long for me, but that's when they'll be attending the academy. So for the time being, they're going to be riding around with officers and getting acclimated to the police department. And so they're ready to go when they do get out of the academy. So I appreciate the fact that they selected us, and we're lucky to have them. So thank you. As I mentioned, we do have a school resource officer, and obviously that's been in the news quite a bit here in the last week or 2 for an unfortunate situation, but it's just becoming too commonplace. But we are lucky enough to have one of the best in that community at the schools. She is really good with the youth. She builds relationships with the youth, and we are very lucky to have her. Police support officer, he's the one that transports the people that we arrest to jail, to court. He kind of does just about anything that we need to get done. Larry is that guy. And then we have our 2 ladies, records technician Jody and records evidence technician Janelle. They are the ones that I work with every day and interact with every day, and they kind of do a lot of work for me as well, but they kind of keep the office going. I'm going to call up Captain to kind of help me out here on his portion.
Absolutely. Well, here's our police explorers at one of their functions, whether it be a summer or winter academy. Sergeant Keaton, who's in the back here, he's the advisor that's in charge of the Explorer program itself. These guys, as you've seen over the years, they've come and we've presented them to you of winning a lot of awards. Every time they go to these academies, they have always come out with academics or physical awards or active shooter placement at really high. And something to really think about is that when our explorers go, they go against explorer groups that are 50, 80 members or more groups of departments like Portland PD or Yakima that have really large numbers. And we have fluctuates between 10 to 15 explorers at one time, and they always do phenomenal. And we have a combination of Snoqualmie School District and Issaquah School District post members, because a few years back, Issaquah folded their post, and then we were able to absorb some of them and kind of kept that tradition going on. So they train 2 days a month where they meet with advisors, Corporal Weiss or Officer Carey. They go through everything from patrol tactics to shooting to interview techniques, everything that they can do to get ingrained in how to become a police officer one day or get that flavor. And then on their off days, twice a month, they come in as a group on their own and they run the trails. So they work on their physical agility, stamina, and all of those things so that they can be competitive at these different events. Next, please. We're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes a little bit of how we've produced this year. And we do a comparison, as always, with North Bend as well as Issaquah to kind of give you an idea, population base and calls for service. You can see Issaquah has got much higher population than we do, but when you put them all together, we definitely have a pretty high calls for service in comparison. Next slide. Another overview. When we talk about like priority 2, priority 3 type calls, there's also a priority 1. Priority 1 are just the really cold calls, you know, the thefts that are identity thefts that might have occurred months ago and they're just reporting it now. They're really a low priority type call. Priority 2, priority 3, we're getting into the thefts in progress, the domestic violence calls, the shootings, the fights, that sort of thing. So you can kind of see where we have broken that down into the officer-initiated calls as well as the calls that are generated via 911 through our communication center. And it gives you the average response times. And we're sitting right at a national average for average response times. And as you can even see that they're a little bit quicker, if you will, on the North Bend side. But as we are getting more up to staff and have more bodies on the street, we're able to make those minutes, if you will, reduce. And a lot of those factors come into play is that we have calls for service that might be held for a little bit longer than normal, which affects your average. So, yes, sir.
Question for you, is the time, the average response time, is that from the time that the caller makes contact with 911, or is that the time it's dispatched from 911 to you?
This is a factor of when the call came into 911. So you have to factor in also the fact that dispatch is inputting information and then they send out the call, if you will, to the officers. So there's a couple minutes in there of
So this is from when
input.
911 picks up the phone?
Right.
Okay.
Next slide. We like to give you just kind of an overview of some of the main calls for service that we have. Some of this is proactive, some of this is a reactive statistic. But you can see that burglaries are down, car prowls are down. We have obviously some increase in the amount of activity, proactive activity, and as far as enforcement with traffic stops and citations. But a lot of that just goes to show you that we're being out there, we're being visible. We have had obviously a lot of activity and requests for different enforcement operations on the Parkway and in other various locations. So of course those numbers are going to go up because we're complaint based and we want to go and work those areas so that we can change some behavior.
You
Yes.
know,
Oh.
I'm sorry. Do you know on the traffic stops, is it our residents or is it people heading down to Snoqualmie Falls?
It's a mix of both. Absolutely. I did enforcement there last week and I sat there for about 40 minutes, stopped about 10 cars, and it was kind of a mixed bag between residents and people just
Visitors.
flying through.
So is there any logic to what is at the top of the list and what's at the bottom of the list?
Absolutely none.
Okay. I was just checking.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That-
One more question. Do you have those broken down by city?
We do.
I'd be curious if, not like tomorrow even, but just if you could send that around, just so we have kind of a breakdown of city, especially as we approach some important timelines coming up.
Okay. We'll do that, for sure. The next slide, this just kind of gives you a bar graph, kind of another visual of how the different, and obviously this isn't all of them, but these are just a picture of of some of the categories that we've used just to kind of give you a different idea, perspective of the increase between the different years.
What's for community assist, you've got a bar for that, and then you've got a bar that's not labeled below it?
Oh,
Agency assist, you can't see that for some reason.
Okay.
Actually, every other one is blanked out. So
These are just the good
I
ones?
can send those to you. For some reason, those must be a different color that
They
aren't
show up
showing
on the PowerPoint that you sent around that's in the packet.
Okay,
So if you look at that, you'll see them.
absolutely.
You know, I always like to say, though, when you go through all this data and you're talking about response times, you're talking about the number of calls for service that we go to and so forth, I've I've always talked about that's not really the picture that that we want to convey what kind of service we're doing, actually. I think it's more than just numbers that we do. You got to take into effect that we serving the needs of the community. Is the community happy with what we do? Are they happy with the solutions and resolutions that we come to? So I think it's more than just the numbers, how fast you get there, or how many calls you went to that year, or how many arrests you made. It's much more than that. I think that's just an easy way of kind of taking a look at a department about of how much work they do, but it's not really a good indicator of what level of service you give, because you're not taking into account that human element of it. And I think that's very, very important in what we do. And I think that we are really good at that human element. We constantly get, I'm just always amazed at how every week I'll get 2 or 3 emails that just talk about how well they were treated. And that is such a great thing, you know, when an officer's out with them and they're talking about how well this officer talked to them, treated them, they were happy with them, they felt that they were served well. And you know, we may take that for granted, but I'm telling you, it's not the norm. And it's nice to have that here. So I just don't want us to get stuck on numbers. I want us to look at the whole picture. Cases filed is important. I think what we're going to see with the detectives coming in, and we are going to open that up this week. So we'll start going through the process of selecting for our 2 detectives. You're going to start seeing some of these numbers, I think, especially the felony numbers. They're going to go up. You're going to have people that are specifically trained in how to get felony cases filed. They're going to have the training. They're going to be confident in it. So you're going to see some of those numbers go up. I don't want you to think that just because they go up that this town is starting to go down, as it's not. It's just the level of service that we're going to be giving with when you guys decided that it was a great thing, and it is a great thing to have investigators, that's going to be one of the outcomes of it, is that felony filings are going to go up.
Chief?
Yes.
Does that mean that the total number of crimes have gone up, or maybe we're pulling misdemeanors that should have actually been felonies? Is that what you're talking about by doing more work on it?
I'll tell you what I think. I think that typically when you're not confident with a felony filing, or you're not sure that it's going to be a felony filing, you will do the work for the misdemeanor, and you might have that. I think also you'll have more eyes on crime. So where we don't have an investigator, we may not see or pursue a crime because we just don't have that expertise, or we don't have the time to actually look into it and delve into it and see what we have. So I would anticipate just on that it's going to go up. I don't think you're going to see the level of crime go up. It's just that the detection of it is going to go up, and I think that the enforcement and the filings is going to go up. But when we show you the numbers, it'll look like it's going up, you know, that the crime is going up. Accountability, I mean, it's pretty basic. We don't use a whole lot of force, and I think that's because of the relationship we have with this community, the people that live here. 1 use of force in 16 and 1 use of force in 17 is absolutely amazing to me. We did audits over this year. We did criminal justice database evidence. First thing that I did, I was lucky enough to go through what they call a 100% audit of property and evidence, which is probably the most problematic area for a police chief, is property and evidence. And we did a 100% audit, and I'll tell you, I think we had probably 15 items that we had to look into, and every one of them was resolved, which, again, is just amazing to me.
Chief?
Yes?
Can you define what use of force means?
Use of force is anything, well, it depends who you're asking. Some people think a use of force is grabbing a wrist and putting him in a wrist lock, and some people would say that a use of force is a taser, utilizing baton, using physical force to place them on the ground, or up to lethal force. So it just depends on what that is. We would consider use of force, anything that's in excess of a wrist lock is not considered a use of force. That's a compliant use of force, if you will. It's make sure that they're complying. If you have to use anything in excess of that, that would be considered a use of force.
Okay.
What we've done is, I don't know if you've seen our new vehicle out there. I think it's pretty cool looking. It's a Ford Interceptor or SUV type of vehicle. It's what we're going to. It's going to save us about $20,000 to $25,000 per vehicle over the Tahoes that we currently have out there. And this is the picture of the one that we currently have. And we're going to replace those as the vehicles are going to be replaced. And then we've approved an outer vest, ballistic vest. What that does is it allows the officer to get all their weight off of their hips. And when you're carrying around this kind of weight for 20, 30 years, you develop back problems. And sitting in a car, getting out and running, whatever. If you put it on your shoulders, it's a lot better on your back. It's a lot better on your health. Plus, the officers love it. There's better placement of your equipment, if you will, to easier access. So we've gone to that. They should start having, we've had 2 of them that have had it for a while now, and we're going to start having all of our officers that want it have it. We've increased our social media. That's going to be an emphasis, and we're going to continue to do an emphasis on that. We, you know, when 2016, it's really minimal, 27 posts. We've gone to 63 this year, 3 tweets to 21 tweets. You're going to see that increase tremendously. I mean, that's the way we do business now. We do business through social media. We have to market what we do. We just can't get it through the newspaper and so forth. We got to market ourselves, and we got to explain what we do and how we do it and why we do it.
Chief, sorry, I missed my days on the Public Safety Committee. So one of the things I love about WashDOT, or sorry, this State Patrol, or maybe it is WashDOT, but if something happens on 18, for example, which happens regularly, they're tweeting about it. Is that what you're talking about? So when I see you guys go blazing by my office, am I going to expect to see a tweet 20 minutes later knowing what you guys were doing? Is that what you're talking about? Or
that would be great, and we try to do the best we can, but to be honest with you, you have to have somebody that dedicates quite a bit of their time to do it almost full time, to do social media and so forth. And that's going to be in our future. Right now, we're trying to make it work between the captain, between Deanna, that are really doing the work themselves, besides all the other stuff that they do. So we're doing with what we have, we're doing the best we can. But that's a goal, because that's a question when they see a marked unit rolling code 3, lights and siren down the parkway. They're all wondering what's going on, what's happening. And it'd be nice to kind of maybe alleviate some fears and let them know what's going on, situational awareness.
just don't do it while you're driving.
You got it. I'd like to be driving code 3 for once. That'd be nice.
Sean can help you with that.
This is
Funny
yours.
guy. Funny guy.
Just to add on to the social media, we have the sergeants now doing it too, so that when they're working graveyard, this and that, they don't have to call myself or Deanna at 1 in the morning and say, hey, can you tweet this out? Because you know, it just makes better sense that they're on duty and they have the facts and they can tweet or put that on Facebook for us. So that's been very helpful. Community policing, this is where we thrive in the community. We have done, we started this new Coffee with a Cop, and we've done 2 of them now. They've been fantastic. We've had just great input from everybody that shows up. We did the first one on the new Starbucks at the Safeway on the Ridge. And then last month we did a Pioneer Coffee in North Bend. So we're kind of flip-flopping between both cities every 6 to 8 weeks. And we'll be coming back over here to somewhere in Snoqualmie. We're going to be scheduling that soon. And we've just had really good feedback. We have people that come, you know, the older generation that love to talk about history and about old stories of old town times, to people that are expressing their concerns about parking issues or, you know, code enforcement things, and it's just been great. I think the last time when we were in North Bend, we were scheduled for like 2 hours, and we were there for a strong 2.5 hours of just continual people coming through and having a great time. Tanner Jean's Bicycle Rodeo, of course, we do that every year. It's a great community event where both cities are coming. This year, we're going to be doing it in North Bend. We're also doing a kind of a flip-flop thing with that. National Night Out is obviously one of our ones that we do annually. That's a great event as well. Lots of community, lots of people coming and walking and just spending a great time. One of the most popular is this RAD class, or Rape Aggression Defense Training, taught by Corporal Draveling and Kim Stonebreaker. We're currently doing a city employee one here very soon. I know that's already scheduled, and there's been some really good interest in that. So we do probably, how many a year? About, in both, probably 5 to 7 a year that we do. And there could be around 18 people per class in there, and they're just very, very well sought after. And we're currently getting Corporal Draveling certified to do the next level. So there's kind of like a come back around and like a refresher type course. So we push this hard, and it fills up extremely fast.
So are you do any in the schools, like in
So,
high school?
Absolutely.
that?
Every year, we do a class for free for the graduating high school students that are, of the ladies that want to partake. We've started that about 3 years ago. Chief for a Day will be this year. Every 2 years we do that, and obviously that's where we get a child in the community that has a life-threatening illness or disease, and they become Chief for a Day, and we celebrate their life and have a big event at the police academy, and they are just catered to like no tomorrow, and it's probably one of the most touching events I think I've ever been a part of.
Well, we only have two more slides. Hopefully these will be interesting, though. These are some significant cases over this year. One of them, you know, once again, we talk about what we do, and we do good police work out here, and this is a good indication. In January of 2017, officer was driving down Railroad, was passing by the 76 gas station, and observed two subjects beginning to run. Now, to an officer, that's unusual, I guess. But it's about 12:30 in the morning, and so he pulls in the parking lot, follows them where they're running. They hide behind a truck. Turns out that what they were doing was one was in possession of a handgun, and this was all verified by video at the store. We're approaching the front of the store, one with a handgun. The other one was also armed, but he didn't have it in his hand like the other one. They had their masks on. As soon as they saw the patrol car, because you could see the lights coming in the video, they take off running. So obviously that prevented an armed robbery in that case that night. And that was for the observations of that officer. So another one that we have actually video of vehicle theft at one of our banks, Snow Falls Credit Union. Get a call of a vehicle theft in progress. He actually uses force to try and do it. And then he, if you can do the video.
That's a great video.
He ends up running from the location without the vehicle, and we're chasing him kind of throughout downtown, if you will. He ends up downtown by the river. This is a Guardian 1 helicopter that actually latches onto him. We're chasing him on foot. This is through the FLIR, which is infrared,
south.
and it takes the heat, and you see an officer come running up.
Coming up to contact him.
And it's cold. This is in May, so that water's cold.
It looks like two people are chasing him right now. So he's right almost to the river.
So he decides to, I don't know.
Copy. And 3-1 radio, 624. I just contacted him. He's going to grab.
Anyway, he goes in the water.
378 and 86.
And he's in the water for about, I want to say 30 seconds or so. He tries to latch onto this
3-1, go ahead.
tree.
Snoqualmie firing route.
He tries to go across, but he's realizing it's not the right thing to do.
Hey, Josh, you guys still got eyes on him, right? In the water?
So now we actually become in a mode of saving him. It's not a, you know, he's not a suspect. He's still a suspect, but now it's a life and death situation now. And I think he realizes it because he ends up going back and latching onto this branch or tree actually, and sits there and realizes how cold it is. But what's interesting about that is
Snoqualmie PD, Snoqualmie Fire with 10 Eco Park State in place to stage or Riverfront Park. 2 Charlie for Guardian 1. How much longer can you guys stay up?
so our officers are there telling him to come out. But what's interesting, it'll go back to the FLIR here in a minute. And remember, FLIR works off your body heat. And what's interesting is you see the officers light up the screen, but you don't see a whole lot of him. That kind of tells you how cold it was because his body heat is not coming out. So he's actually in that screen coming out of the river right now, and you don't see him very well. He's the guy in the middle.
Wow, yeah.
So you can see that water was real cold, and it dropped his body temperature quite a bit. That's good.
So how often do we have access to helicopters?
When we requested it, just depends if they're up or not. That day they were up. We requested them, and they were there quick. It was nice, actually. talk about some of the de-escalation is a big word that's thrown out now. You know, why don't we focus on de-escalating situations when we're confronted with a combative subject that's under a mental health crisis or so forth? You know, we've been doing that for many, many years. As long as I've been around, we've been doing de-escalation, and we had a great example of that. We responded to a subject that had a knife in his house. He was going through crisis, and he was threatening the family with a knife. Prior to our arrival, he left the house with the knife. We ended up finding him in one of our local parks, and we proceeded to talk to that gentleman for half an hour while he's in possession of a knife. After half an hour, we ended up getting the knife away from him, taking him into custody and getting him the help he needed. So, I mean, that's a perfect example that you really don't hear about of de-escalation. And we do save lives as well. In December of 2017, we responded to the Falls for a subject that was distraught, that was talking about maybe taking their life, and our officers responded and actually talked that person out of doing it. And so, you know, we are taking care of people, not just in the police work law enforcement aspect of it. We actually do good stuff as well. Recruiting, we've been talking about recruiting, how difficult it is, and how we did a video. We developed a video, and if we can play that video. It didn't take me but the first little drive down Snoqualmie Parkway to realize that this place is special. Mount Si is initially right in your view, all the trees, and it's just a very breathtaking environment.
When you come out to the Snoqualmie Valley and you see the trail system, and you see the parks, and you see the beauty, and what the community has done is to build a community around that natural beauty and still preserving it and making it a great place to live, work, and play, I think that you'll fall in love with Snoqualmie Valley and never want to leave.
We contract with the City of North Bend for law enforcement and have been doing that for about 3 years now. And we've hired 8 officers and 1 support staff in order to maintain that contract.
In North Bend, it's going to be a growing community, so you're going to be involved in the growth of a beautiful, small community.
And it's kind of central in the Pacific Northwest, where we can go, 2 hours and be in the desert, or we can drive a few hours and be to the ocean or the Sound.
I'm very avid into mountain biking, hiking, and camping, and I can go ride my bike right from my house onto the trails around here, or hike right up the mountain 10 minutes away from home. It's just such a beautiful place.
We have so many community events. They range from doing soapbox derbies to parades to bicycle rodeo events. The officers really get ingrained in organizing and facilitating these events in the community.
Citizens come into the police station, they wave at us, they stop us on the street just to tell us thank you, and thank you for serving the community. Thank you for what we do.
We've been selected as one of the top 5 cities in the nation for families to raise their children. And that says a lot about this community.
Every time that we have done a citizen survey, we've always been in the 90th percentile for satisfaction.
And so if you want to work at a department that the community supports you, welcomes you, and wants you to be a part of their community, this is the community that is really where you'd want to go.
That we are not too busy that we go call to call to call and can't take care of our community members or victims of crime. We have the ability to spend time with people and help them find the resources that they need.
Do you feel lucky to work in a place like this? Is we're afforded the opportunity to excel or enjoy the kind of policing that you like to do? Spearhead in development, all new cars, computers, investigative tools, firearms.
We have a full 8-lane, 25-yard indoor gun range that officers can use on their shift, after shift, on their days off, and they can practice their handgun and their long rifle skills. We also have an outdoor range that we use from a private organization where we can shoot 150, 200 yards with our AR-15s and also practice our handguns in the summer. The opportunities here are endless, and the city government itself and city administration are very supportive of law enforcement.
I have been able to do a lot of things as I've been here. I did SWAT for 11 years. I've been on the Major Crimes Task Force for the last 2.5 years. So I've really got to explore a wide range of what a police officer does. And the department has trained me through the whole process. Anything I really wanted to do, they gave me the training, they gave me the ability to accomplish that. We start in this department with a core group of great people, and we really try and fit people that want to be part of the community, want to make a difference, want to be proactive in the community.
The competency of the officers that we currently have is you're going to be working with great officers.
Snoqualmie was a place where I could work a great schedule, work with really good people, work for a city that takes care of their employees and really values keeping them here, and a place where my family would enjoy, and I could provide my family with all the best things.
I want people to come to work that want to work here. I want people that are excited to work here, that feel that they have open options and new ideas. That's the kind of person that I would like working here. Well, besides me, it's always hard to watch yourself on those, but obviously that's catered to a recruitment. So you're hearing a lot of things that maybe aren't pertinent to what we're doing now, but recruitment is a big issue, and it still hopefully won't be that much in the future. We just did, I guess, offer. Well, we're having somebody in the background right now that'll fill the last position. So if we get this person is successful in the background process, then we're going to be fully staffed. And I don't know if that's been happening for a while. So accreditation real quick, that's one of the goals. We're going to be working on accreditation. That's going to take a lot of time. It's just going to set standards of what we're doing, and the fire department has been doing it, implementing that, and we're going to follow suit in that in the future as well. So if you have any questions.
Chief, that video reminded me of a question I'd asked a few months ago back when I was on the committee. The chase scene was really cool with the helicopter. Obviously, that's subject to their availability, and I'm sure it's extremely expensive. For $500 to $1,000, you can get these cool little drones that you shot some of that video with. Are you prepared at all to discuss what the future might hold for drones in the city in terms of law enforcement?
Well, we are working with IT and fire chief is here. We're talking about emergency management and working with getting drones for emergency management system. And that's kind of your foot in the door, kind of addressing those needs. Obviously, I think in the future, and we'll see where it goes, if it can assist us. I know of a lot of areas in law enforcement that a drone can really be assistant to what we do. And it's a cheap way of doing it. I think that's going to be the way of the future. A lot of departments are doing it. Where I came from, they deployed them out of the car, actually. And so, I think that's just the way of the future for law enforcement. We have to be careful. When they first started coming out, there was a lot of concern about the use of it, and are we going to be violating people's rights and so forth. And that's a concern of mine as well. So we're going to make sure that we're walking through this process to make sure that we're doing with drones what we're supposed to be doing and that we're doing it right. So I do have some future ideas as far as drones, yes.
Chief.
Yes.
You talk about the new Ford vehicles will cost quite a bit less. Would you comment on whether there's compromise in the things that you need for your officers to be effective in their vehicles?
Well, I think the difference is that you're giving away a little bit of room, obviously, with a Tahoe. I mean, a Tahoe is just a more expensive vehicle, but I think the capability that they offer, both of them, is pretty much the same. We have to have a four-wheel drive vehicle, and we have to be able to respond in all weather, all conditions, and there's no doubt that we have to have a four-wheel drive. But I think that the only concession that you're really giving away at this point is just the room inside the vehicle. But that vehicle, the Ford that we're going to be going towards, is being used by many, many departments, including the State Patrol and King County, and you just see them everywhere. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Epps.
Thank you.
All right, before going on, I do want to back up and catch citizen comments. Are the citizens here wishing to make comment on the items not currently on the agenda? Anna?
Anna Sotelo, 7713 Center Boulevard Southeast. It's nice to have you guys in one place without a quorum and emails. It's been really tricky lately. I am here because for the last few months I've been just catching up on things and where it's gone and reading lots of documents and educating myself on different things, so like comprehensive plans. And one of the things that's really concerning to me is the CAI retail study. And it was, the original draft was on 10/25/16. It went to EDC on 1/17/17. They revised the draft on 3/16/17. It went to CDC on 3/20/17. Excuse me, I want to be in my 2 minutes. Then it went to 3/20. So the actual dates, and the date I attended was August 23rd. There was one previous on August 14th. And it was a study that was intended to help Ridge neighborhood merchants with the Safeway opening and the transition strategies. And I guess my questions are that I don't understand. One, the 25th was the actual Safeway ribbon cutting day, but was this survey finished? Was this research finished? A lot of you were on those committees at that time, so you should remember it. Where are the results? Can we get the results? And who monitors this for the council? Like when you guys get presentations, like who follows up to make sure they were done? Is there like a follow-up? I would like to have seen that research done probably in 2015, and I feel it probably should have been on the FNC for that project, for this fact and conclusion for the project of the Safeway. And that just really concerns me because all the data that was used, it was 2002, 2006, 2007, and 2011, which I feel was really biased because the 2011 study was actually for a landowner by the freeway. So I guess I'm just really confused if we're using such old data because so much has changed in retail and grocery trends between Amazon Fresh and Amazon and just everything, and nothing was really done. And I'm really worried now about more retail coming to Mill Pond because there's not enough to go around. And Sean tried to tell me to have hope, you know, the IGA just closed and that we should tourism, but again, I just don't know how. I don't know how when none of that, I thought for the last 12 years we had that covered. And I see like with job description that we're still, and I guess I'll go on when I have time with the job description. Thank you.
And I would like to make comment. There were behavior, hand signals. There were behavior and hand signals in the last council unbecoming a council agenda, whether I'm sitting here or I'm sitting over there. We're not going to do that again.
I don't understand what you're referring to.
We can talk after council if you would like. Okay?
I don't
All right.
understand what that was about my comment.
It wasn't about comment, it was more about the last council meeting. But, you want clarification? We'll talk after council. All right. Other citizens wish to make comment on agendas not on items not on the agenda for tonight? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below will be enacted by one motion. Action items include approval of minutes for February 12th, special and regular council meeting, approval of warrants as stated in the agenda package, Agenda Bill 18031, Resolution 1438, adopting the Snoqualmie Fire Department Standards of Coverage. That was introduced on February 12th and is for action tonight. All right. I believe that is it for the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Who was the second? Thank you.
All those in favor?
I have a question.
Me.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm aware of two proposed corrections to the minutes for the February 12th meeting. They've been communicated separately to the city clerk. I don't know what our normal process is here, whether we would just perhaps move this off the consent agenda, maybe delay acceptance of this till later, or we may because they're really questions, I don't know for a fact that they have to be changed. So it's more like it has to be looked
So if it's a
into.
discussion, we can move it off the consent agenda.
Okay, then I would request that we move it off the consent agenda.
All right. All those in favor of moving the minutes discussion off the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we'll move that into committee of the whole.
Point of procedure?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it the case that if just one person wants to take it off?
Any person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't have to do a vote.
Never get the ban to be taken off.
Okay.
True.
Mission was accomplished, so we'll go on. All right. Let's move on into reports, public, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. May I have a vote then on the remaining consent agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. All right. Then let's move into reports, Parks and Public Works, Agenda Bill 18037, consultant agreement with RH2 Engineering for water system, general sewer and wastewater facilities and stormwater systems comprehensive plans update.
Per state requirements, all engineering reports, plans, and specifications for the construction of water systems, sewage treatment or disposal systems, or for improvements or extensions to existing sewerage systems or sewage treatment, and the proposed method of future operation and maintenance of said facilities shall be submitted to and be approved by Washington State Department of Ecology and the King County Health Department before construction begins. Typically, this approval is received as part of the preparation and approval of a utilities comprehensive plan. Recommended motion, move to approve consultant agreement with RH2 Engineering for water system, general sewer, and wastewater facilities and stormwater system comprehensive plan updates, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 1837 as stated by Councilmember Sunwall. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Peggy?
Okay. Did you do an RFQ?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and what was that process like?
What was it like? Well,
Right.
It was a standard process where we issue an RFQ for various consultants to basically invite them to submit qualifications for a project. They submitted, we had 3 teams that submitted, 3 consulting teams. And we had 5 folks within the Public Works Department review. Oh, yeah, if you want to see the set of qualifications from the winning consultant, we have it right here for you to look at if you like. So 5 different individuals from the Public Works Department reviewed the qualifications. We would take a qualifications statement, we call it, and we compare this with the RFQ, which lists out what we want, and we each score it based on how well they answered the questions that we asked.
Okay.
So based on the 5 folks that went through the scoring process, RH2 was selected the winner. They were the unanimous winner. They were so much better than their competition that we didn't even do an interview with them. They had it down.
And then the next step is to negotiate?
That's correct.
Okay, and
Yeah.
how did that go?
The negotiations went pretty well, I would say. I mean, maybe this is kind of a strange thing with me, but having coming from consulting for so long, I like to have very complete scopes. So we had RH2 do a very complete scope. I wanted them literally to write down everything that they were going to do, break it down. And you'll see as part of the package, there is 34 pages of scope items. Yeah, right here if you want to look at it. And then we set about going through each of those scope items and determining whether or not we needed them, and had multiple scoping meetings with RH2 and basically worked out a scope that suits our needs and a budget, corresponding budget to where we had to make further cuts in order to get us within it. But, we got to...
So each line item that you had like a set dollar amount that they would how does that work?
That's typically how it works, correct, yeah. So, you'll see on a scope, you'll have, task 1, and there might be task 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, where we actually break out every little thing they're doing. We discuss it. We think, okay, we like all of this, but we don't really care for that part. Cut that out. and that it corresponds to a reduction in the budget.
So they basically give you a list of, or you have a list of items, and basically each line item has a price associated with it. You pick the lines of things that you think will meet your needs. and
Essentially, that's true.
That's how
Yeah.
it goes. So you
It
don't-
basically
so
is
you
an
don't-
hourly estimate, with appropriate costs associated with it, yeah.
So you don't dicker over a particular line item and think you're charging more than I think you should, kind of thing. You don't do that.
I don't really understand your question. So they give us their rates, and they give us the hours that it's going to take to do that task.
Okay.
Right? So based on the rates and the hours, it's not too difficult to determine, what they're charging. We can remove scope. I can't tell them, I don't like you charging me that much for.
You can't say that.
Well, no, I mean, that's what the rate is. I mean, they're a business.
I'm learning this. I'm
Yeah,
trying
they
to
don't
figure that
reduce,
out.
they don't read, yeah. I mean, that's the standard protocol for negotiating scopes, is that you negotiate scope items. And we don't necessarily worry too much or focus so much on trying to reduce the cost of the labor, right?
Mhm.
Because really that's all it is. It's the cost of labor plus ODCs plus overhead, right? So we can't touch their overhead. That's their FAR rate. It's a federal audit rate. They can't change that. ODCs, we can work on ODC if we want. ODCs, other direct costs. So if we see direct costs in there that we don't agree with, we might challenge that, and we do. But in this case, we had a very yes.
Point of clarification, particularly on this one. Exhibit C of the contract lists out specific tasks that they have called out in the contract, as well as hours associated with those tasks.
Right.
And then based on their rates, which is another exhibit, that figures out to a cost for that task. City has the option of going against those tasks and saying, maybe that's a couple hours short, whatever, having that discussion. Ultimately, and we've done it in some contracts in the past, we've said, we got to rethink this and we can reject moving forward. I don't think that's the case here, but as far as how this process can work, you can go down that path.
Okay.
Let me, I'll come back, Peggy. Let me get, Matt had his hand up there, say.
So during committee last week, we talked about how the budget was higher than, or the cost for the work was set higher than the budget. It was about $4,000 higher. I noticed that you've gotten that down under budget. What things were negotiated that would be of note to address that? How did they achieve that?
Well, we cut out some of the stormwater analysis, which we thought that maybe we could reduce and get away with. The good thing is that consultant, NHC, Northwest Hydraulic Consultants, we have multiple task orders with them, so if we needed to add it back in, we could perhaps attach some of that work to a different task order if we need it. So it got us below the task and still has the backup there if we actually have to do that analysis.
Will that in any way not meet the goals of this process?
No.
By doing that, you'll still be able to achieve the same final result
Yes,
that you
that's
would
correct, yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, let me go Peggy. Peggy, you had another comment?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And why do we need a water plan now?
Okay, good question. So I brought some folks with me today. Michelle Campbell is from RH2. She is our project manager for RH2, and she is an expert on planning for utility systems. And then Todd, of course, Todd Saxberg, he is our operations manager, and I would say he is an expert on running a utility. So between the two of them, those guys, I'm going to lean on them heavily today to answer a lot of these questions. So why do we need to do a water plan? I'm going to turn this over to Michelle. There's a very good explanation for it.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I can, to short circuit things, if I may, because it's legally required. We're required to have a water system plan, and we're required to update it on a periodic basis, which right now is every 6 years. And Michelle can speak to when that exact deadline is coming up, but it's going to run at some point next year, in the fall of next year. And if we're looking at an 18-month process to prepare the plans, we're at or past the time to get started. So the reason to do it is it's legally required by statute and Department of Health regulation.
And there's a lot of good reasons to do it too. And if you want to hear that,
No, wait a minute, hang
No?
on, hang on.
Okay.
That answer gets me home before midnight.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so
All right,
I want to stick,
all
with,
right.
I want to stick with that one.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Councilmember Ross?
Sure.
So we've done these plans in the past. It looks like you did it in 2011 and finished the stormwater one up in 2013, right? And it looks at the total cost, based on what you included in the packet, was around $360,000. So what more are we getting out of this plan than what we've done in the past? Are those apples to apples, or
Considerable.
are they different?
They are. We're getting considerably more out of this plan. We're getting more out of it because we need to get this out. The last plan that we had done was not sufficient to do the level and scope of planning that we needed, and we actually ended up spending considerably more money on planning studies after the fact. I believe it was $265,000 that we ended up having to pay to do a 6-phase sanitary sewer plan, which was in addition to that.
It's not included in this then?
It's not included in that,
Okay.
no. That was, that was strictly the planning effort as it went through council and what was approved. I think the rest of it was done as either an amendment or a change order. And then we ended up, and we can't find the exact figure because it was buried in with a bunch of other work, but we ended up spending a considerable amount of money for the water plan as well because of we're not in compliance with some of the leak detection. These are all things that we need to take care of. I have a list of additional things that we need to do. And I can also explain the cost difference. The cost difference is actually not really much of a difference because under the current planning cycle, we've been doing it every 6 years, right? So when you take the $360,000 that was budgeted and allocated to these comp plans, add in the 265 and say another, I don't know what it was, but it's somewhere around 100,000 bucks. You find that the difference is not that much. Another thing is that's done every 6 years. These new comp plans is not the right word. That's utility service plans. These are not comp plans. That's a remnant language that's left over from years and years and years. And I just learned today that I can't say that anymore, so I'm still fighting with that. But the thing is that in 20 years, when you project ahead, in 20 years, we'll do this twice. In the 6-year planning cycle, we would be doing it 3 times. So we're actually paying about the same either way. But we're going to do a lot more with these, which we need to do. And some of the additional things that we need to do include, well, Canyon Springs, about what we need to do with Canyon Springs. We need to do a considerable amount of planning to prepare ourselves. One, to make to harden that so that we don't lose it. And if we do lose it, we're going to have to figure out, we're going to need another source of water. So we need to figure out the water rights. We need water service plan in order to get any more water rights. We need to figure out, what it's going to cost to develop more water sources so we can figure out how much money we want to spend on Canyon Springs. We have the Southwell treatment field, or Southwell field. We want to do a treatment system to kind of reduce the odor and water quality problems we have there. That's a CIP amendment that we got to look at. Reclaimed water pumping and storage. Right now we have reclaimed water that we're sending up to the golf course and we're sending it up to the homeowners association. Right now we don't have any means of storing any of that water, so we really don't maximize how we use it. We're using a lot of drinking water to irrigate golf courses and landscape areas. So by looking at taking a closer look and sharpening our pencil on how we address reclaimed water, we can manage our water much more effectively. Springhead protection up at Canyon Springs. Again, there's a aquifer recharge area up above, and King County currently is spreading biosolids up there. That's not likely to be any kind of a problem, but we need to provide the technical analysis to demonstrate that it's not going to be a problem. It protects us. Retail service area capacity analysis, we need to update that. The mill site, and we do have to plan for some future growth, is a minimum requirement that we have to do. Recalibration of all of our flow models hasn't, I don't think we can't find that we've ever really done a sanitary sewer flow model, and that needs to be created. We need to recalibrate our water system, and our stormwater system hasn't been recalibrated. When I say flow models, H&H modeling, what we're looking at is how much capacity we have and how it's all linked up so that it functions adequately, plus, inventory on all of that stuff. That hasn't been done since well before the ridge development, so it all needs to be updated in order for us to effectively plan ahead. I can go on and on. Okay.
I think she got her answer.
Okay.
Councilmember Sunwall.
Yeah, a couple things I just wanted to add on that as well. One of the things that, if you do a little bit of math on this, you come up with the old plan costs us about $104,000 a year. The new plan will cost us about $78,000 a year. So not only are the actual price tags close when you start looking at that, when you start expanding that to being valid for 10 years, now you're starting to really get some value there. The second thing I wanted to say is, and this was sort of hinted at, but because the first plan was so insufficient on the sewer piece, we were actually we were denied wastewater projects by the Department of Ecology, which caused us to have to go spend an additional $265,000 and some untold, undocumented, or whatever amount of money, up to $100,000, I guess, to correct that. So in my consultations with folks, this seems like a far more comprehensive plan and we are also required as a Phase 2 city, I've learned, to meet some additional requirements. Phase 2 city, we're probably on the bottom end. Bellevue is also a Phase 2 city, so that kind of gives you the spread of how big Phase 2 cities are. Tacoma, Seattle, Phase 1. So
for stormwater.
Correct.
Yeah. Mm.
So we have to meet those requirements now that we have graduated to the lovely status of Phase 2. And then the final thing I wanted to say in terms of future development, because I know this can be a hot topic, is by adding that future development piece in there, we are now better equipped to be able to know what to charge developers when they come in and what contribution they need to make to the system to be able to do that. So we have to have a way to calculate that. And this plan will help us be able to do that in a way that's perhaps fairer for the citizens who have lived here for whatever. So you have growth paying for growth.
Yeah.
Is that a fair
That's
statement?
Great. That's
okay.
Yeah. That was a really good explanation. And a little bit too. The other place where we're going to save money on this, and which is not, I can't really give you a figure on it, but improved planning reduces waste. Right, so you guys are familiar with that Puget Sound Energy commercial where it's kind of a cartoonish thing where that dollar bill's flying across the room and out the door, We have that on a utility scale, right? So a very effective means in saving money is trying to plug all those areas of waste, do things so we operate more efficiently, adopt different technologies to allow us to manage things better, and do better accounting. The city is also engaged in starting an asset management program. So this integrates really well with the asset management program, and it allows us to track our equipment and our usage and our operations and maintenance much more reliably.
Okay. Peggy, you follow?
Okay, so I've been calling around, talking to other departments in other cities, and I told them about the price tag that we have for this, and they were shocked at the price tag. They thought it was, and one of the cities has worked with RH2. So one of the things that I was advised is that I guess the water plan is good for 6 years, and you can ask for an extension for another 4. One of the things I didn't understand is we have some deficiencies in our current water plan. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I didn't see anything about that in our agenda packet, about why we are going this direction. I saw all the things that RH2 would do, but I didn't understand why we were doing it.
Yeah.
Can we get some?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll let Michelle answer that question, actually. She's been engaged in the scoping, and she's the expert, so I'd like her to answer that.
Okay.
So the answer or a response to your statement that just with a letter or some additional work that you can extend the plan for another 4 years is not correct. That the Department of Health is not allowing that right now. They did allow that probably about 4 years ago as an option, but now that they've the 10-year planning period is written into the Washington Administrative Code, that is not allowed.
Okay. What is the deficit exactly of our current plan? Can you list those out, or?
Well, so first of all, this is a requirement that you're required to do by Washington State Department of Health, the Washington State. So the deficiency is in general that it doesn't cover your current planning period, which is 2019 through 2039. So that's primarily what we're going to be looking at. We're looking at what your system is right now and what you need to do in the next 20 years. Your current plan only goes to, let's say it was
2019.
Right. So you'd have another 14 years beyond that. So it doesn't cover the future planning period that you're required to look at now.
But isn't it correct to say, at least part of the statement of work here is to analyze the current and future needs of the system and to identify things that need to be done to address that need?
Right, yeah. And so, I'm sorry.
No,
Continue.
it was just, so as nature of the beast, this drives out what are the deficiencies of that future requirement. It's not a contract saying, here are the deficiencies, tell us how to fix them. So they will tell us what the deficiencies are and how to address them moving forward as part of the statement of work.
And what's the growth assumptions that you're going with?
It's what is stated in your comprehensive plan
From
and in the
2014?
So this
2020, was it 2023 comp plan? 2030?
what was
It's Snoqualmie 2032, the currently adopted comprehensive plan. That's what the law requires the utility plans to be pegged to. Specifically for water, the health regulations state that it must use and be consistent with the land use assumptions in the city's adopted comprehensive plan. And there's a set of growth management hearings board decisions that make that really clear, that you can't use the utility plans to re-examine the growth assumptions. The utility plans have to implement your adopted growth assumptions from your comprehensive plan.
And then in the, I think it's Exhibit A or 1, you do reference comprehensive plans on a number of places. And I understand that you're not supposed to use the term.
That's my fault. Yeah. We're supposed to be using utility systems plans is what it is. It's the lingo for years has been utility comp plans. And I'm not a utility planner so much, so it's easy for me to fall into old habits. So
Speaking to the mic.
That's my
Can we get you to the mic? So let's make sure we
The
get.
reason Jeff's saying that is because each of these plans is required by a different source of legal authority, and it names the plan something else. So the Department of Health statute and regulation refer to the water plan as a water system plan. The ecology regulations refer to the sewer plan as the general sewer plan. The National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Phase 2 permit says the stormwater program that we need to adopt is a stormwater management program, or SWMP. So they each have different names. So calling them a comprehensive plan, I think, has just created some confusion about whether this is the city's GMA comp plan or not. And so that's the reason that we've tried to get back to using the technical terms for each of these plans.
So, and the water system plan used to officially be called a comprehensive water system plan by the Department of Health, and because of this confusion is why they've dropped the comprehensive from the official title of this requirement.
So in addition to that, I've contacted the person over the comp plan for the city of Issaquah and talked to them about the idea of these plans and looking at growth in it. And I understand you're saying it's not growth, right? We're not dictating growth from your work.
It's growth that has already been planned is what we're using to evaluate your 3 utilities.
All right.
Okay. Councilmember Mayhew?
Two questions. One, just a quick one. I just want to clarify, just because you used some particular words.
Yeah.
Just want to double back to them. You used the particular words on, with regard to $4,000 or so in change. You used the particular words, what we could get away with. And I just want, from the nature of your, you said we reduced some things we thought we could get away with.
Oh, right.
Just to clarify, from your further comments, what it sounded like you did is you had some items you thought could be reduced out of the scope of work legitimately. So we're not really getting away with anything. It's just, it was a legitimate
That's
reduction.
correct. Yeah, I thought
Okay.
that we could reduce the amount of analysis.
Right, that's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to double check
Yeah,
and
without
be
really
sure.
affecting.
And clarification, there was a request out of Public Works that if we're $5,000 over budget, we ought to try to get back in budget, and he appropriately took action.
Right, out of F&A.
That came out of actually.
Oh, both,
Yes.
okay.
I attend both meetings.
My other question is just, I just want to make sure I kind of understand the sequencing, and I just.
Sure.
So, and just forgive me, I wish I knew this already, but the comp plans are updated on a, I know they can be updated, I believe, every year, but is there some minimum cycle, like 6 years, where they must be updated?
Yeah.
For the utility
So,
system
I'm sorry,
plans,
this
right?
is for the comp plan, I'm sorry.
Oh, the comp plan, okay.
How often does the comp plan need to be updated, Bob?
How often does our Growth Management Act comprehensive
Yes.
plan? That's on a
Is it-
6-year cycle, I believe, but I think the legislature may have just extended it longer. So I'm trying to remember. I'll have to get back to council with the exact date.
Okay,
on
let me-
when our next update is.
Just
due,
run
unless
out my questions.
Unless Mark Hoffman knows that date off the top of his head, he may.
The easy answer is it depends on which county and which city. And so when you go to where it is codified, it identifies who you are and the timetable in there. It's not as simple as every 6 years, go do what you do. It's by this year you shall. And so now that we did it December 2014, I believe the next date is 2022 or 2023.
Okay, so 2022, 2023. So let's just sake of discussion, assume it's 2023. Then this water and the 3 plans that we're updating, would those need to then be updated as a result of that, or not necessarily?
That's correct.
They would have to be.
Yes.
Okay.
To reflect whatever changes you did in your land use comprehensive plan. That's why it's on a regular schedule, similar. It's a little bit more, let's say, rigid to a 6-year or however many year program. But the land use comprehensive plan leads your utility plan. So whatever you've amended or revised in your land use comprehensive plan, you should reflect in your utility plans. But that said, it depends on what those revisions are. If you don't have many land use comprehensive plan changes during that period, you're not going to have many in your utility plans.
Got it. Okay, that's very helpful. And then, so we're about a little over 3 years after our last comp plan update. Sort of, right?
It was
Wanna do the 50,
adopted
60,
December
17?
2014.
Right?
Yep.
So, waiting 3 years, is that sort of a normal sort of, this sort of delay cycle would be about 3 years, or would it be better normally to do this closer? So, for example, if we do this again in 2023, would it be more like 2026 when we do this again, or would it be better to be closer to 2023?
We could work out the dates. It should follow, absolutely, because one informs the other.
Right.
As a community development director, it should follow immediately after.
Okay.
Because then those plans are in line with the land use comprehensive plan.
So, wait a minute. So, Bob, I want to make a statement, make sure, we are not legally required to update the utility plans when the comp plan gets updated.
Not immediately, no. You are required to update them within the schedule that applies to those particular
For those
utility
particular
plans. Right.
Which might be 10 years from now.
So there's no legal precedence between the plans. There is a timing precedence and data precedence between the plans, but there's no legal precedence between the plans.
Okay, that helps me a lot to understand. So therefore, what I thought I heard is we're kind of coming up on some timing for these particular plans needing to be renewed, and that's why we're looking at this now.
Correct.
Perhaps they could have been updated more close to sooner after the comp plan, but it wasn't required, but we're getting up to the date here where it is required. Got it. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Summerall?
So I just wanted to clarify, I saw potential disagreement with what was being said. I just want to have your outside opinion on whether what was said by Mr. Hoffman would be your outside similar analysis of what is required or preferred.
So, yeah, I agree that his last statement that only if there's significant changes to land use or growth scenarios or whatnot is what I recommend that there be an update to these utility plans out of the requirement cycle.
So would that be like a minor amendment if we had to do that?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. Thank you for that addition. So,
So it wouldn't be this giant $800,000.
That's right. There's something called a water system plan amendment that you could submit to the state for any changes that you might want to kind of clean up between the comprehensive plan and the utility plans.
And just to clarify the date on the GMA comprehensive plan update schedule, I'm now looking at the statute, and it says for cities in King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties, it's on or before June 30th, 2015, and every 8 years thereafter. So 2015, 2023, 2031, under this current legislative schedule.
All right, hearing no further discussion, is there any member of the public wishing to make comment on this item prior to action? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One nay, motion carries. All right, let's go to Community Development Council meeting. Agenda Bill 18038, Events and Coordinator Position Description. Councilmember Mayhew, are you taking this one, or?
I got it.
Okay.
City of Snoqualmie seeks to add an events coordinator position. This is a professional position under the direct supervision of the Administrative Services Director. Incumbent will provide recommendations for events and activities to enhance the image of the city and coordinate plans and programs accordingly. A full list of job responsibilities listed in the position description, and the staff recommends approving this events coordinator position.
Second.
Yeah.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 18038 as stated by Councilmember Jeans. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Jeans?
We've been working on this matter well into the fourth quarter of 2017. In early 2018, our committee was given the responsibility of reviewing the events coordinator position description. We have met on 3 separate occasions, including one special meeting, and in each meeting, we voiced concerns, we listened to responses, and after each of those meetings, the staff came back with tweaks, recommendations, observations that we've had about the position. And we think it's ready to move forward. We got a considerable amount of public input regarding the position description. Some people said it's too general, some people said it's too specific, some people said it's not like another city. But in the end, the matter of doing a job description is a matter for staff to present to us, and they have presented to us the opportunity to get a good person for the position and to make it work for the city.
Further discussion? Hearing none, are there members of the public wishing to make comment on this agenda item before we take action? If not, I'm sorry. Anna, you gotta flag me. Make motion, I can see.
Anna Sotelo, 7713 Center Boulevard, Southeast. So last Monday, I attended my first parks, I guess that's the commission. And it was fascinating, to be honest with you. It was a board of some very intelligent people, but their title's actually Parks and Events, and they really were surprised, and let's just leave it at surprise, that they hadn't been asked for their input sooner. And I kind of can relate with that after sitting through that meeting, and they had some of the most wonderful ideas, things that I'd never heard discussed in any of the other commission meetings. They had really, really good input. And, you know, I heard when Bob asked Melissa to put it on the agenda, and I heard people that wanted to be involved, that had been involved with the parks, and they volunteered for all those events. I had no idea what they do. And I would really like to see you guys give them the courtesy of what they've already kind of started and let them put a little bit of input into it. Thank you.
All right, seeing nobody else come up. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's go to Finance Administration and Council Committee, Agenda Bill 18038, amending 2.64.1.010 of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code to include events coordinator. And I'll read the whole thing. It has been proposed to add an events coordinator position to the list of officers and required confirmation by a majority vote of the City Council, Section 2.64.010 Snoqualmie Municipal Code states the following are hereby established as the approved officers by city appointment of such officers when the city shall be made by the mayor and require confirmation by a majority vote of the City Council. City Administrator, City Attorney, City Clerk, Financial Officer, Administrative Services Director, Fire Chief, Police Chief, Public Works Director, Planning Director, Parks and Recreation Director, Building and Official Code Enforcement Officer, Information Technology Manager, and 13, any other department head level position hereby created under Ordinance 1027, and I'm not sure what the rest of that says, so I'll just leave it off. Okay? Okay, the proposal has been reviewed by F&A Committee as of February 21st, and at this stage, the committee did not propose moving forward with it. But in order for discussion, I move to recommend Agenda Bill 18039, amending 26410 of the Municipal Code to include events coordinator. May I have a second?
Second.
So open discussion, and I'll take at least the first lead. We had discussion of this in F&A, and it was really felt that the responsibility of the administration is basically the hiring and administration of city staff. And at a certain level, it is beyond council purview to do that. If there are issues with that, that's more of an issue at a higher level than the individual position that is. I think there's been enough discussion at this stage, but Bob understands the current interest, and I feel confident he will have discussions with us as this moves forward in the current action. However, I advise you as council, we do need to take the long view, because the actions we take last, I don't know how long. In a long view, I don't feel that this is a position that warrants council confirmation on an ongoing basis. And therefore don't recommend, and the F&A Committee did not recommend changing the code as stated in the agenda package. Okay, I'll open up for discussion. Councilmember Sunwall.
Yeah, I think what, I mean, this was already sort of solidified in my mind, but you read that list of ones that are, positions that are currently require approval from the City Council, and this isn't even the same area code. This position is a fairly low-level entry, not entry-level necessarily, but certainly far below an officer position. I think this is a terrible precedent to set forth. I think that this is a knee-jerk reaction to a contentious and frankly still simmering issues with a prior person who held functionally some of these roles. If that had not happened, we would not be having this conversation, and I don't believe that it is a justification for adding this to the list of what would be 14 positions in the city that would be need sustainment from the city council.
Councilman Lissay?
I'm going to somewhat echo that. I think when you look at the list, the job description specifically indicates that this position will report to the Administrative Services Director. It's clearly a subordinate position. And in many cases, this person will be receiving direction from department head positions. It just doesn't pass the test for being a position that the council should be taking on, and council should be approving on a regular basis. So I don't see a reason why to move forward with this.
Yeah. Councilmember Jeans, we'll get you next, Peggy.
I don't know whether it's part of the administrative rules, but for these director positions, which is in essence those numbered positions in this piece of work, the nice thing that the city of Snoqualmie does is for these important positions, they take the finalists for those positions, and we have a public setting where we have an opportunity to meet them and to, in some cases, actually participate in the interview. And in many ways, we have an opportunity to form an opinion about who we would like to see in this position. I mean, I'm very proud that I participated in several of the people who are in these positions today, that I participated in that, and I was proud of that opportunity that the city gave me, and that ought to continue. That ought to continue. And for the reasons stated by other fellow council members here, that's not something for an administrative position. That's not something for this level of interfering with the effective administration of city government in a wise use of our time.
Councilman Shepherd?
So I'm the only one who thinks that this, for some reason, this position has really struck a chord with our community, and it's been very challenging. The person that occupied this task before really was difficult for many residents, and I know that as far as precedent, this used to be the case where we did approve these positions, and it was changed somewhere in time. And so this is not an unusual thing to do, and I think that we should add this particular position, given what we've learned from the last person who occupied it. I don't think it's a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's an appropriate response.
So, point of clarification, though, the events coordinator was never in this ordinance. We did approve a contract. It was a contract position before, so that counts. It's council responsibility to approve a contract, but that position was never in this ordinance for confirmation. Go ahead, Peg.
Historically, we had other positions other than department heads, and unrelated to the events coordinator position, that were approved by city council. That's the history I'm talking about.
Okay, they may have, as a courtesy, administration may have, and again, I expect the same courtesy, given the recent events around this one, that administration will talk to us as the process goes through of fulfilling this position. But I don't think this is dictating that it will, and it will from now on, be an approved position. Again, long view versus short view. The long view, this is not a position that warrants council in-depth confirmation, in my opinion. Other discussion? All right. So are there members of the public wishing to make comment before we take action on this agenda bill? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Oh, I'm confused.
Wait,
Wait.
what, I'm sorry, can I
Well,
clarify
the
what I
agenda
just
bill
voted
is-
for?
That's clarification. The agenda bill is written to make the
Whoops.
events coordinator a council-confirmed position. Saying aye will make that a council-confirmed position. Saying nay will not make it a council-confirmed position. Let me retake the vote. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
Motion does not pass. Okay? Other point of business for the Finance Administration Committee. I do apologize. I had another action. Unfortunately, there are members of the community who take pride in keeping our attorney busy on things that the community probably wish he'd had time to focus on other things. But I would at least like to make a motion that the next coming set of committee meetings be noticed and conducted as joint committee and committee of the whole meetings, so that it allows all council members to attend. Again, per the discussion we had prior, those non-sitting council members are part of the public as they attend, but in order to keep it straight with the public's meetings, we need to notice them as joint meetings. I will try to bring an agenda bill to codify behavior and everything else at our next council, but I still wanted to get us into the mode of having the opportunity to go to those other meetings. So, again, I would like to motion next set of committee meetings to be joint committee and committee of the whole meetings. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Jim?
Thank you.
May.
Are you sure?
Matt Lizzie?
Can we get some specific dates on those times? Because you said kind of, in general, the next coming meetings. Are we being specific in terms of like the next two, or the next one, or the
Next
next
one.
12?
The next one.
The next one.
The
Okay.
intent is to have the agenda bill for the next council meeting to make it permanent.
So then I move to amend the motion to be for the next upcoming committee meetings occurring the week of March 5th.
Specificity.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? What, go ahead.
I mean, Matt, just so I can understand what you're saying, you really want this matter to be discussed in committee before it comes forward?
No, I want it, I'm saying that we would need to be specific about which meetings we're saying are going to be noticed.
For how long?
And for how long. And really, if you want my opinion, is so we get this taken care of, so that we don't have it drag out for 2, 3, 4 meetings and not have it taken care of.
So let me restate the motion with his amendment, that the committee meetings occurring the week of March 5 will be noticed as joint committee and committee of the whole meetings.
Are we voting on the amendment or the original?
You need to vote on the amendment,
Okay.
okay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries. Back to the main motion on the table. Councilman Summerall.
So, I, in principle, am all for having everyone come to everything. That's great. However, based on our conversation at the retreat, I am very reticent, and I don't understand the urgency of having this next week be attended by everybody without rules in place for how that's going to operate. So again, to be very clear, I am totally fine with council committees being attended by everybody, but without rules in place, and without some great sense of urgency of making next week a meeting everybody can go to, I would rather wait until we see your draft of what the official change of ordinance or whatever would be to allow that to happen. Because I think that puts council, committee chairs and committees in a little bit of a, I mean, I wouldn't even know what to say if things were getting out of hand or things weren't operated based on what I thought they should be versus what Councilmember Jeans thought should be in his committee. So I don't understand the sense of urgency on this. I'm not asking for a massive delay. I'm just saying, why don't we wait until you have something put together in the next week or so, or whatever it is, and then we talk about it.
Councilman James?
I think that's a good idea. I just don't know whether we need to do it. I think we can rely on the chair of each committee to simply say, these are the rules this week. And we will let the drafting of the resolution or amendment or bill straighten that out, but we can stumble through it.
Yeah, but, but to answer your question, I'm trying to fulfill my commitment to you, which was to bring this back to council this week, and it just, through other events, it's not here. But I at least want to take half a step of at least noticing the next set of meetings. You have the floor, though.
So, but my concern is, and this is a question for Mr. Sturbank, is I don't feel like I'm in a position to wing it at the Parks and Public Works Committee meeting. So if Jim Mayhew shows up and wants to make a comment, what if my rule is, sorry, extra council members don't get to comment? Is that even legally sustainable? Am I allowed to even say that? So these are the types of things I'm concerned about, making up our own rules as we go. This is why I want rules made up for us. Just to the similar point as to why we need to have some consistency in our committees at all, whether we allow public comment. You know, we have some do it not in one committee and others don't. So again, I don't understand the got to get it done this week before we have weirdness happen next week potentially by council members showing up and wanting to participate in some way that I don't even know if that's legal, or whether it's legal for me to say, sorry, Jim, you're a green like the color.
I'll just change my comment when you ask the second time anyway.
So I don't necessarily say that's going to happen. I think it puts us in an awkward position without any rules, and I appreciate the confidence in the chairs of being able to wing it. I'm just not sure that I feel comfortable with that.
Can I amend the motion? So I will amend that non-city council members are participating as public for this next set of meetings. And you already have the rules governing public participation. May I have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Non-sitting council members will be attending as public.
So what are your rules then?
You have to listen
So
to
make
them.
a-
Like
So
anybody else.
the full motion would be that the committee meetings for the week of March 5th are noticed as joint committee and committee of the whole meetings. Non-sitting council members will be participating as public.
Did you mean non-sitting committee members?
Non-submitting committee members will be participating as public. Good catch. May I have a second before we go on discussion?
Second?
All right, discussion, I think, Councilman Ross?
So I'm not sure that we're all together on who's allowing public comment and who's not. I thought there were some that didn't want public comment. So are we saying now every single committee is going to have public comment? That's a good question. Are we going to be consistent or not?
That is outlined in the council procedures currently.
Can you recap that?
Yeah.
We can if we want.
It's committee chair discretion.
It's just subject to the committee
Yeah,
chair.
it says chair discretion. It says you should solicit, I believe, paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of you, you should solicit, but the extent of that public discourse is at chair discretion. Councilmember Mayhew?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, whatever rule the committee chair applies to the public would apply to everyone who is not one of the three
Correct.
committee members. And I don't want to be too pedantic here, but there's two committees meeting, right? There's a committee of the whole and so you mean the committee that isn't the committee of the whole?
Correct.
And so anyone that wasn't sitting would follow the rules of comment by public, whatever those rules are, as at the discretion of the chair of that committee, which is what our current rules say. Yeah.
So I think I'm the only committee chair. Well, that's irrelevant. I will, my committee, Community Development Committee, I will allow the public to speak, and I will allow council members who are not sitting on that committee next week to comment. So I think I'm the only one who's been out of sync with what other chairs have done, so it is now a moot point.
Well, no, hang on. So unless they are properly noticed, other council members cannot join the committee.
I'm sorry, you're making comments and I can't hear you.
Unless it is properly noticed, other council members may not attend your committee meeting. According to the open meeting, what's the open meeting law?
Bob's just clarifying that he's going to allow comments of all kinds in his committee meeting because that committee has been somewhat of a laggard in terms of allowing public comment. That came out wrong.
That's not what he said.
Has been the only committee that has traditionally not consistently allowed public comment, and he was just clarifying that if you go to his committee, you'll be able to make comment from now, for at least this week, including anyone who comes, whether they're a council member or not.
The laggard agrees with you.
Okay.
I want to just make sure we're still subject to the rules of the committee, meaning it's not an open free-for-all.
Correct.
It's not discussion. There'll be opportunities to comment on each agenda bill, just as you would at council, subject to the chair accepting those comments.
Correct. And really, the 7 participants in this action are you guys. If any one of you says, I can't abide by what we have collectively said here, say it now, and I'll go back and make the complete agenda bill so we all have it outlined. But I consider we 7 can come to agreement. We can do this next week.
Good. You make a good mayor.
Can you please restate the motion one more time? Because I want to see if you're actually putting it in as, are you trying to add this public comment part into this, or?
No.
Okay, that's not clear to me, so. We keep talking about that, but I didn't know if it was part of your
Just
amendment.
assume I write it down. So again, the motion is that the committee meetings for the week of May 5.
That one you guys already voted on, right?
No.
No.
No, we're still on that one. I think we've cleared all the amendments. We're still talking the main motion that of the committee meetings of May 5 will be noticed. March 5, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
The week.
Of March, for the week of March 5 will be noticed as joint committee, fill in the blank, and committee of the whole. And that
non-committee members.
This is all part of
non-committee of the whole committee members will be participating as public.
Okay.
Committee of the whole members may participate.
Non-committee of the whole.
No, committee of the whole members can participate.
Committee of the whole members will be
And participate
participating as public.
as public. When's our mayor get back?
Making this difficult. Can you?
He's a
did you get
laggard.
enough?
Yeah, I've got it. And I'm going to listen to the tape, too.
Oh, so let's take. Okay.
Why does this have to be so hard?
All right, further
Hope the audio's
discussion?
working right now.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed say no. Motion carries. Can you guys
Alrighty.
do the appropriate notification?
Yes.
With that, I feel I've met my commitment to you guys, and I will, at least partially met my commitment to you guys, and we'll have an agenda bill for next time. No other report for F&A, and we will move on to Committee of the Whole. With that, let's go back to the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Mayhew, you had questions or corrections?
Yeah, I have 2 corrections that have been separately communicated to the city clerk, but only today. And the city clerk hasn't had time to look into those matters. So if possible, can we delay approving these minutes until those matters have been looked into?
So I have a motion to table the minutes until next council meeting? To postpone the minutes till next council meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. No, sorry, say no. Motion carries. We will table that till next council meeting. Postpone till next council meeting. I like table. All right, so let's move on then to the other discussion for committee of the whole, which is council committees, meeting times and dates and potentially locations. All right, if it's acceptable, I try to do some homework to help us out with the discussion. And you may advise me that I've given you, this is a calendar for March, which lists out when our meetings are occurring. We'll see, we really like having meetings on Monday, which may provide us some conflict in council members being able to meet their liaison requirements and committee requirements. Want to ask you to take a look, because I've noted that some of our information on the web has not caught up with some of the actions.
This is current or proposed?
This is current.
I believe it is current.
Okay.
If there are corrections to make it current, please advise. If there are, let's work toward what we think ought to be the proposed schedule moving forward. You know, of note, on March 5th, we will have public safety at 4 o'clock at the fire department, Parks and Public Works at 5 o'clock in the council chambers, Planning Commission at 7 o'clock in the council chambers, and Community Development at 6 p.m. upstairs. Mr. Jeans, Councilman Jeans?
Well, that's fine for the community development, the meeting at 6 o'clock, but is there a dilemma at 7 o'clock when the Parks and Events Citizens Committee meets at 7 o'clock in the same room?
On the third Monday of the month, there is a conflict. If you look at May 19th, you actually have community development at 6 upstairs, and you have parks and events at 7 upstairs.
So it only becomes a conflict on the third Monday of the month.
Yep.
A conflict because the meeting could go long, is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
I don't see any
The
conflict
conflict
unless.
because we'd have to finish the meeting at 7 o'clock to make room for them.
Yeah, okay.
Councilman Mayhew?
So I have two concerns with this. One is Parks and Public Works Committee does not have a track record of finishing within 1 hour.
Correct.
So that tends to be a problem for the Community Development Committee because there is one council member who sits on both.
Yeah, you may blame that on the past chair of the Parks and Public Works.
Well, I don't, because I read the agendas and the minutes, and it appears to me, given the workload of that committee, that I couldn't imagine how they would finish within an hour. I think they're doing a pretty good job to finish in an hour and a half, and I know that sometimes they don't achieve that, but often they do, I believe. So I think there's a lot of heavy lifting going on and expected to go on in that committee. So I think allowing it more than an hour is something we should think about. And then I would make the same comment about community development is, since I've been on that committee, it's felt very squeezed and perhaps sometimes rushed to try and finish within an hour. And so allowing for that to have the ability to go to an hour and a half, I think would be, would support the functioning of that committee a lot better.
Okay. Councilmember Samuel?
Is there a reason why we couldn't, and I know I'm only focusing on the first Monday, but is there a reason why the community development couldn't start at 6:30?
The issue around that is I also serve as the Planning Commission liaison. I can show up to those late and have my liaison report be later in the meeting, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having a liaison at that meeting attending. As the Mayor Pro Tem understands, it's a complicated and probably our most complicated commission, and does take full attendance. So that creates that conflict. So every night there'll be an issue with that.
How many people on that commission?
7. So I don't know if we want to call Mark Hoffman up for a moment and kind of give a summary. I requested that he check with the commission members, both for the Planning Commission and for the Parks and Events Commission on date changes to address some of the conflicts.
Mark Hoffman, Community Development Director.
So what's the results from the commissions then
feedback?
in terms of feedback on dates?
For Planning Commission, the 2 new appointees penned in Monday and have conflicts for Tuesday. Cannot do it. We neglected to ask at that moment whether the conflict was just that night or not, and so we sent an email around to the other commissioners, and their conflicts are Wednesday and Thursday night. So collectively, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday do not work. We did not ask about Friday night. The conflict on Monday nights is that the same staff that the Planning Commission and the Community Development Committee rely on, they're at Parks and Public Works at 5, they're at CD Committee at 6, and at 6:59, we're down here at Planning Commission. So changing any 3 of those is not just based on room, evening, and so forth, but which projects are on the agenda and where those staff members are at. Then, as follow-up, we asked for feedback the same question at the Parks and Events Commission, and the feedback that they gave Joan was that they're generally amenable to looking at another night. Which night, I couldn't tell you, but their next meeting, the 3rd Monday of March, they could explore another night. So that feedback leads to a potential change for the 3rd Monday evening.
At least eliminating one conflict.
Yes.
Brian?
Councilman Summer?
So this is crazy. I'm just wondering if, because this involves you, if we were to move the Parks meeting to 5 o'clock on Tuesday and move F&A to like 6:30 on Tuesday?
When you say parks, do you mean Parks and Public Works?
Committee, yes.
Okay.
Moving that, instead of 5 o'clock on Monday, move that to 5 o'clock on Tuesday and have F&A follow that at 7 or 6:30 maybe?
How much time do you need between the preceding committees and F&A? Do you need a full day, or can they occur in the same evening?
It would be better if they didn't occur on the same day, but we could accommodate, but it would be a little bit more complicated to get the agenda ready for the Finance and Administration Committee generally looks at the entire agenda. They have their own agenda, obviously, for the committee, but also for the entire council to sort things out with the mayor and the mayor pro tem.
I'm just trying to think, moving 3 people is hopefully easier than trying to move 7.
Might be better to try to perhaps make a suggestion, move the Finance and Administration Committee to a Wednesday night. That would leave then most of Wednesday to get things compiled. If you had a different committee on Tuesday night that moved over from Monday night.
How does our acting city clerk feel about a turnaround on Wednesday evening?
It's doable.
Agenda settled Wednesday evening.
I mean, people are still trying to make changes to the agenda on Thursday and Friday after we tried to post it on Thursday.
They'll always be trying to make changes no matter what day that's on.
But also, if this has a holiday, then everything shifts out another day, and then you got.
Now you're posting Friday.
Yeah.
So.
So I make a motion to ban all Monday holidays. Is that possible?
Talk to your wife and children first.
They'll all be asleep.
I think the proposal to move the Parks and Events Commission would be the best choice, and the committees could still slide together for Monday and Tuesday nights.
Sorry, Bob, repeat.
The request to ask the Parks and Events Commission to move their meeting to a different night would be probably perhaps the best option.
I think that's one.
That doesn't help us on the first Monday, though.
So, hang on.
Either Monday.
Councilmember Jeans?
So piggybacking what Bob Larson says, that is one option. The other option for a possible conflict between Community Development Council Committee and the Parks and Events Citizens Committee is the Community Development Committee normally has fewer people attending than the Parks and Events Committee. So we could move my committee, Community Development, to the second conference room upstairs. And so it's not a problem during the first Monday. It would only be solving a problem in the third Monday. And although actually the committee has actually had a lot of attendance lately because there was an issue lately, but generally speaking, the Community Development Committee might have as little as 6 or 7 people normally. So I think that would work.
I think the issues are between the council members shuffling from the 5 o'clock meeting, get to the 6 o'clock meeting they're supposed to be attending to, or getting from the 6 o'clock meeting they're attending to get to the planning commission they're supposed to be attending to. That seems to be the conflicts there.
Okay, so I know that, so those are in Public Works, raise your hands, that's you, I, and Matt. And then those that are in Community Development? So Matt, you've got the conflict there.
It's all pointing back to me. I see where
Yeah,
it's going.
you've got the Planning Commission at 7.
You have a crazy Monday.
I'm guilty.
Is there an architectural solution to this?
So I think, one, I do think we ought to propose
management.
moving the Parks and Events Commission to another night than Monday night and let them choose what night they want. That will relieve some of the congestion there.
That relieves facilities congestion. It doesn't relieve the real need for most of these committees to go 90 minutes.
I mean, the constriction that occurred was everything moved tighter to the beginning of the week. We previously had F&A on Wednesdays, 2 committees on Tuesdays, and 2 committees on, or 1 committee on Tuesday and 2 committees on Mondays.
F&A's been
Well,
on
F&A
Tuesdays.
previously was on Wednesdays, correct?
No, F&A's been on Tuesday for some time.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah, I think it's, just to be clear, Councilmember Lissay, I don't think it's just you, it's the staff supporting these meetings as well. Yeah.
Thank you for bailing me out, Councilmember Mayhew. I think the solution is time management at this point. We've got to be efficient in our committees, and we need to proceed with business in a timely manner. You know, public comment may impact that. Public comment and extended debate on agenda bills may impact that. I'm not saying it's neither good or bad, it just has impact. And we'll just need to be diligent and get through the information in a timely manner until we have another solution.
Is there any opportunity or chance that the Parks and Public Works Committee could start a little bit earlier? I know that's really imposing upon folks who have day jobs.
For about 7 months out of the year, that would be difficult to be here at 4:30.
12 months, I got you, 12 months out of the year, it'd be difficult to be here by 4:30, but, you got a shorter commute than I do for this.
I do.
Yeah, far shorter.
All right, so, Matt, you're suggesting?
I'm suggesting we look into moving the Parks and Events Commission, so their next meeting is next Monday. Take it up with Parks, put it as an agenda item for them to take up a date move.
No, they're not till the 19th.
Yeah, they won't be
Oh, that's
till the
right,
19th
we've already
again.
passed it, they just had it this last week.
But we could
But the next
probably,
time.
do something in email with them to.
Yeah, come up with a date.
Come up with a different date.
And that at least, I mean, I know we can go to a different conference room and kind of resolve some of that as well, but there is staff impact to both, to that.
Well, and
that
they could
meetings.
even, if they want, move to the fire department.
What about the building next door?
Well, are there staff that need to be at,
The Boy Scouts make that.
are there any staff that are,
We can
Mr.
work out the staff liaison issues. If we have to, we have other staff who can shift over. There's staff to go around. That I don't.
All right, Councilmember Mayhew?
So I wonder, so parks and events, that sounds fantastic. I wonder if once that, assuming that we can do that, I wonder if the planning commission also could start potentially at 7:30 instead of 7. That, if so, that would give you another 30 minutes. You could split it between, so each of the other two committees could go to at least an hour and 15 minutes each,
Yeah.
which I think would be helpful.
They blocked out the rest of the week. Can they give us a half hour?
Through the chair. Not recently, but in the past, and certainly in the future. Those are already 3-hour meetings. Some went to 5 hours. And 7 o'clock is kind of the latest as far as getting started. Starting later means longer. So, and starting early would be problematic. Not that it's being offered. But to start at 7 and finish at 9 is a challenge. Finishing at 10 is more the norm. If you have a large project, you're there till midnight.
and I can confirm that.
You should have to be elected to be here till midnight.
You would think.
So if I can.
We continually asked for triple the salary, but that didn't really work out.
You got triple the salary.
Of 0.
3 times 0 is 0. So if I can close it at this stage, it is moving parks and events to another night at the discretion of the commission, leaving the rest the same. I do ask Councilman Losay that if this is not working, you come back and advise us, and we start to look at committee members at that stage.
I commit to that, yeah. We'll look at it if it doesn't work out. The important thing here is serving the community and making sure we do what we need to do in terms of what we've been asked to accomplish, so.
Okay.
We'll reassess it after, if it continues to be a problem.
Councilman Ross?
I don't know if what you're planning on doing with this calendar, but Economic Development Commission is at 8 a.m., not 8 p.m., just so you know.
Oh.
Where did I get that one?
That's okay. We've got it.
Yep. Sorry, that was probably me not accepting a city meeting at 8 a.m. in my head. Okay, other discussions? All right, so again, to make it official, basically move to keep the committee meetings as they currently are, with the and that the commission, Parks and Planning Commission, be moved to another night other than Monday at their discretion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Was-
opposed?
Is there a second on that?
Does this require a motion? Like, does this require a vote?
No, but not really, but
Just for fun?
I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page.
You're down to the last couple votes here.
Huh?
You're down to your last couple votes.
I don't think I got a second if you're really
It's
trying to do a
okay.
motion there.
It doesn't need a motion. No.
We didn't need a vote anyway. It was just,
Oh, don't say motion to me, then I start writing move too. Okay. Note taken, note taken. I will give it to Joan and Dan.
All right, moving on with the rest of the discussion for committee of the whole, ethics hearing report. Mr. Larson?
I think it was reported at the last council meeting that the ethics, the hearing was the following day after the last council meeting, and so that person should be hearing from him any day now. We have not heard as of today, but I know that Attorney Sturbank will be contacting that person tomorrow and asking about where the report is.
Okay. Discussion? None? Okay, let's go to Operational Consultant Advisory Services, Accounting Reporting Service status.
Several staff have met with Clark Nuber representatives throughout the last 2 to 3 weeks. I know that they're on schedule. I expect that they're going to be providing us with some type of an update later this week. And depending on what that is, I'll get that information out to council right away. If it's routine, probably not. You can wait till next meeting. But if it's something other than that, I will certainly obviously speak with the mayor and then get it out to council post haste. I haven't heard anything unusual, if that helps. It's pretty routine stuff.
Okay. Councilmember Mayhew?
I would just make the comment that sometimes advice that comes out of a project like this can be fairly complex, and it can take a lot of thought to really think through the best way to, if those are complex recommendations, the best way to implement them. You may be thinking about staff, maybe duties, realignments. You may be looking at staff adequacy. It can be very complex. I don't know if it will be in this case, but they can be. And so I would just encourage you to not feel a need to rush out with something, though only just, you know, if you receive information, my own view is it's not necessary to rush out that information to us. I'd rather have you spend some time thinking it through, having administration think it through, so that the inevitable questions that will follow, that you actually have, you're somewhat prepared for, you've given some thought to, depending on the complexity of what you get.
Correct. It will most likely operate as we have in the past with other consultant reports. We'll take a good hard look at it before we make any decisions.
Okay. All right, so move on to the next discussion item. Do we need Mr. Sturbank here? Salary Commission for elected officials?
No, this one is, what I would be asking for is, there's been some interest expressed by the elected officials of this group as well as the mayor into looking at this, this commission. More recently, North Bend conducted one. The members are appointed by the mayor. I believe they're confirmed by council. I don't know that for a fact. I'll check into that. But I guess what I'm asking for is council interested in continuing the process. Staff's prepared to do that, but it really should show at least a consensus of the council interested in wanting to explore this further. There's statutes on this. It's pretty straightforward.
I'm not understanding what this is.
The salary commission, the salaries of the council members.
That's for us?
Yes.
Yes, elected officials, yes. That's mayor and council.
This would be outside consultant to basically benchmark the elected officials.
If I can clarify, it'd be a representative, a commission of members of the public. So it'd be your residents who'd be looking at this.
Thank you.
Does that cost us anything to look at it?
Generally, no. It'd just be, if you decide you want to, give them some coffee and some donuts once in a while, it'd be about the extent of it. But they would be serving at without compensation.
And so they'd be asked, they're doing a salary study for?
Yes, it's pretty straightforward. They look at other communities. You'd most likely want to use benchmark communities that we've looked at in the past or other surveys. If council's interested in going any further, I can bring back more detailed information. I just did not necessarily start with that, with the expectation that if there's a majority council, for instance, who's not interested, it'd be a moot point to bring anything further back. But this has been expressed by several councilors in the past year, so.
Councilmember Mayhew?
So it's my understanding that this question arose because the council asked for a study to be done on the administrative staff compensation, and there was some confusion that arose out of that as to whether that meant just the staff, or whether that also meant the council and the mayor, and that this notion came out of that confusion, and the answer was that, well, if you were to look at council and mayor, you would have to do that as a different process than the one that goes for staff. This is my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And so that's how this question has come up. The other thing that I heard that was interesting is that evidently it's been quite some time since council and mayor compensation has been looked at.
It's been about 20 years, and thank you for that clarifying notes there. You are correct. That's where it originated.
So this is way upstream from a vote on whatever recommendation may or may not come from that group, correct?
Just so yes, if you were to request a commission, the mayor were to appoint those members, whatever decision they would make does not have a vote of the council. It would just be, there's certain ways you'd implement this. There's one or two ways, but I can bring more detail if you'd like, but the council would not necessarily have a vote on that matter.
In the normal course of business for one of these, what recommendation they have gets enacted.
Okay, so we're not voting for our own, okay. So if they came back and said, instead of $500 a month, you should make $515, it would just happen.
They would set a date by which it would happen, that's correct, implement it. It would not require a vote of the council. I bet that they're getting way past the detail issues here.
Councilor Mayhew?
So I think my own comment, I was, when this first came up, I was a little, I don't know if surprise is the word. I hadn't really understood our original request to include, but once to include the council and the mayor. But once it came up and I learned how long it had been, my own point of view is I don't know whether any of us currently serving are concerned much with the compensation, but I do think that as a matter of good governance, we ought to have appropriate compensation, certainly for the future, and individuals that might want might be looking at running for these positions. So I am actually in favor of it since it's been such a long time, just as a matter of good governance, frankly. And you know, I don't think any of us are necessarily looking. I don't think this signals that any of us are looking for more money. And as Administrator Larson said, there's ways that this can be done if that's a concern, so that it doesn't impact current council members, so that they can look at that as well.
Councilman Lissette?
I just did a quick look, and it looks like if we're going to use some comparable cities, I don't know if Issaquah really is comparable in this sense, but they recently did a salary commission in June of 2015 and found conclusions, and I won't go into the conclusions, but one of the recommended things they did was that independent salary commission should be convened at least every 2 and no longer than every 3 years to avoid any large catch-up increases or to maintain keeping pace with other municipalities. So at least there's some local precedent for doing this on a regular basis, being what that is.
Councilman Jeans?
I'm not sure how long it's been, probably more than 15 years, maybe much longer than that before anyone has looked at salaries for elected officials. I'm in favor of looking into that because an independent commission can probably confirm what the 7 of us know, or actually what the 8 of us know, that attending a council meeting or attending council meetings is the tip of the iceberg of what council members do. And it would be nice to look at ourselves with comparable other cities, but comparable is a very relative word. There are probably some much larger cities that have a different composure and maybe we do much less than they do, or vice versa. I'd like to put us into perspective, especially with some very serious legislation in the. I'm thinking of the 4 years ahead that some of us have committed to. It'd be good to know how we stack up, not so much in compensation, but with respect to the complexities of the things that we do as council members. I think it would be good for us to know. I think it would be good for the public to know.
So I guess I'll throw my 2 cents in. I guess I'm a little Jeffersonian, and be aware, Thomas Jefferson died broke. That I think some communities are at times done a disservice when the stipend for sitting in this seat becomes a motivator for running for office. I don't think, if any of us got into these jobs for the salary, now's my time to tell you you're crazy. Okay, it's a little late, should have told you before, but, so I won't stand on a soapbox, but I guess I'm lukewarm on the idea.
I agree.
I think it's good to get a comparison. Although we were at a workshop recently, and there was a council member from Normandy Park, and they were thanking her for her service. And she said, "Why is everyone thanking me? Because you don't get paid." And like, "You do?" And so they weren't aware that there's other cities get paid for being a council member. So.
Yeah.
I sort of have two volunteer jobs. I coach, which is a volunteer job, sort of. I mean, there is pay associated, but like this, nobody gets into that business for pay, that's for sure. In one sense, I don't know what they'll find, to be honest with you. All I've seen is research done in Issaquah. That seems to be the favorite city to compare us to. And I have no idea what they'll find. They might find that we're overpaid. I have no idea. But it seems a little contradictory that we would ask for a similar thing to be done for city staff and not done for electeds. Because the reason we're doing it for city staff, well, there's a lot of reasons why, but I think for city staff, we want to make sure that we are keeping up with what's going on out in the other world, not so much from a competitive perspective, because again, if we go from 500 to 750, I don't think that's going to cause a bunch of people to want to go through this, right?
Well, but I don't think this is an inter-municipality competitive position where staff positions are.
Fair enough, but we also can't go get elected in Issaquah if we wanted to, right? Because we don't live there. So my only point is that I don't think doubling this salary would encourage a whole bunch of people to go knock a bunch of doors, put a signs up in the middle of the parkway, and sign up for this. If it does, okay, but I don't see the harm in doing it. Could we reject what they find?
No.
Well, personally, doesn't that depend on how we set this up?
After that.
I believe there's two different ways. One is through initiative and referendum, I believe, through state law. And then the other one obviously would be to have the mayor appoint the commission members. Let me check on that, because I have the notes, but I just didn't read through them very thoroughly since I last looked at them.
And I think we could constrain the commission to come back with recommendation and this council would vote, but in that condition, I believe it does not take effect until the next term in the seat.
Until the seat turns over, that's
Can't
correct.
vote your own salary up
That's correct.
or down. Well, you can vote down anytime. you
Only
want.
Congress can do that.
Only Congress can, yeah, I won't go there.
No, 2016. That was adjusted.
So, do we want, at this stage, probably Bob to come back with outlining the options on a salary commission and how we could, if we choose to proceed forward, what are the options of proceeding forward?
So they bring it back if you like.
I don't think we're in a hurry, one way or the other.
Okay? All right, further discussion, or we let that action go till next council?
That's fine.
All right, let's let that go. Are there other items for committee of the whole? All right, let me do Councilmember Mayhew. He had his hand up first.
We had one of the citizens comment tonight about a study of ridge merchant, I may not have written this down correctly, CAI, study of ridge merchant strategy. I'm a bit curious about that, and if we don't have the answers here, I don't need an answer tonight, but would hope perhaps 2 weeks from now we could get an answer. But I'm just curious, is that a study that exists? Has it been released? And is that available for people to look at? And if so, where?
Our Community Development Director, Mark Hoffman, was overseeing that particular study. If you want him to comment on it, I think he can. He's approaching the...
Come on up, Mark.
So again? The study exists. It's more than semantics. The dates that were thrown out, the first group was setting up the contract, getting it started. The two that mattered were, I believe, both in August, or a month separate. And those were meetings with community attributes, staff, and the merchants that attended to get feedback. But a lot of related things happened, including the job descriptions, the putting off of the economic development elements, the expiration on December 31st of the existing contract. Now we have movement on events. The next conversation was, what are we going to do with the other elements, the other programs? And one of those being Ridge merchants, as opposed to downtown merchants. This is a Ridge merchant effort. So while those meetings happen with the merchants and we have a draft or waiting in the wings strategy, until we have a group or a meeting or a commitment by those merchants, there's no sense polishing that and finishing it and signing it and calling it done. So it's waiting in a very draft form.
Great. Great. Do we have at this point a plan for when we might move forward on that, or is that not? We don't have a firm plan on that yet.
Now that events were before you and peeled off, I imagine either on the 5th or the 19th at Community Development Committee, we would ask that very question: what's your pleasure? Where do we go from here? Okay. And what's the timeline? And what's the urgency? And then give feedback on why. That's a prime example of why it's a program that's very important, but is sitting waiting for decisions that would then put all of those persons in the room, chief among them being the Ridge merchants themselves.
Thank you.
So are you saying that there's oversimplified, there's a plan basically that needs some dusting off, it just needs people to implement it? People being some sort of merchant group?
Well, I hate to characterize anything, and I'm not going to dive into what that strategy is or isn't, but it's worthless without people. Finishing off the effort and calling, oh, we've paid for, adopted, signed off, that effort's done. Now we have a retail strategy or a retail and services strategy for the Ridge. There it is on my shelf. That means nothing. What really matters are the people, the merchants, the coordination, keeping them involved, and that requires that structure of Ridge merchants actually meeting, which hasn't taken place for quite some time. So the real purpose of the strategy is to put something in whoever is interested and will attend into their hands so that they can begin that coordination, and that's the next step, is who's going to coordinate those merchants?
From the city?
Or otherwise, yeah. Until December 31st, it was a consultant contract through the city that organized and supported. How that comes out of the next conversations at Community Development Committee, how it's accepted with the Ridge merchants, that'll define whether this retail strategy sits in my office forever or is actually used. And so for March and April, I very much would like to, for that particular item and other items such as PSC Museum, the Falls Greeters programs, the Visitor Center beyond this next contract funded by LTAC, that's a very important conversation.
Sounds like a perfect thing for you guys to take up, committee.
Especially if we had more than 60 minutes.
So I'm hoping to have some idea in March what we're going to do with this summer, but more importantly, what we're going to do beyond this year. We can patch certain things together and keep them rolling through this summer, through Labor Day. We're certainly planning to do that regardless of what happens. But at this point, what is the city going to do in that effort in 2019 and onward?
Is it possible to have a work session for a certain topic that seems to be a deep dive and maybe include all city council and allow residents to have a back and forth conversation about it? This seems like something that really needs a dialogue.
Well, we have the committee structure. That's where we'll start. We've heard mention of roundtable formats through the city council with the mayor and so forth. They could take any form. We would have to, before I responded certainly, frame what we're doing. Right now, it is a replacement for a contract that expired on the 31st.
Right.
So once we know from the initial meetings what we're trying to solve, then we can discover a format that works for all parties involved, including the merchants themselves. I do know that with the one, and it may have been mentioned by Anna, What this strategy is or isn't, it is not a retail leakage study. We had in the 2017 and 2018 budgets 2 ideas of what we would do with the economic development budget. For 2017, it was this retail strategy in cooperation. We knew that the large retail was going to open. We needed those managers in the room. They were very busy. Now they're not so busy, but they could coordinate. But what that strategy is not is a leakage study. And so in 2018, there's another budgeted line item that could be used towards retail leakage analysis, but it's too soon. So we're really looking at 2019 after any such format and meetings and feedback, and then testing what is happening with not only retail but all the other economic segments citywide, probably in the next budget round.
Councilmember Mayhew.
So I don't know whether I think personally that having this go now to committee and have some time spent on it as a next step makes a lot of sense. I think that I don't know if this particular topic, but also perhaps other topics may be appropriate due to their complexity to come in. I don't think we don't have work study. What we have, which is I believe virtually identical concept, is roundtables set up in our council procedures. So it seems to me like as we kind of get through this council, you know, we're working through attendance and we're working through timing, but it seems like another thing that might follow on for us to really look at, I know we discussed this a little bit at our retreat, is when it might be appropriate to do some of these roundtables and really go in more depth on some of the more complex issues that are coming down the pike. I don't know if this will be one, you know, one of my fellow council members thinks it might be, but I think this is something that we should sort of keep thinking about. What are the appropriate things to help us get a little deep dive on, especially when there are some of us that are fairly new to the council and may not have some of the background that others have. So I just make that as a comment for us to think about going forward in the future.
We could do those on Monday.
Shepard.
So in my long conversation with the person over comp plans in Issaquah, we talked about retail leakage, and she explained to me that they're concerned about retail leakage in Issaquah, and that's due to Amazon. That was her top concern. So,
Yeah, and I believe every community is facing that. Every
community and every company is worried about Amazon leakage.
right.
Well, let's, all right, we're getting into my business, but let's keep in mind that 90% of all retail done during the holiday period was at a brick and mortar store. So let's not over exaggerate retail and online services. You still go to a store to buy stuff. They're not going away.
Which brings up an important point that we learned directly from this effort with community attributes is we went into it calling it a retail strategy. It really is a lifestyle center services overwhelmingly. You know, it's not 90 and 10% services. It's about even and it's broad. So it has much more to do with how the Ridge operates and the needs of the community of the Ridge and what they're doing locally than it is just focusing on what's sold, what should be sold, and what's leaking to other communities. So whether this emerges being called a lifestyle strategy or a lifestyle center strategy remains to be seen.
Councilman Ross.
So we have received a copy of that, but maybe some of you, probably council members say, and maybe you have not. So can you send it back out to the council members?
I certainly can. I mean, it exists, but it exists in the form that we're since November, nothing's happened. So if we were to circulate it now, what's missing is some major steps, such as, now that we have a draft, what do you think about it? What's written in there? We haven't done that stage. So while we could forward it to you as a document, it needs to be understood that it's the initial draft. It's a working document.
Right,
Yes, it's a public document, but it's by no means intended to be the strategy. It hasn't been even given to the merchants. It's essentially from community attributes to staff, and now it's waiting. So the danger of releasing it now is then you get whoever responds and has comments and so forth. They're all valid, but they're inaccurate. It's not being proposed. So what the staff's preference is, anyone that would like to be familiar or have it, it exists. But the preference is to take the next step and evolve it so that we can start calling it the draft retail strategy, or eventually the strategy. So, so I acknowledge it. I can circulate it again if it's understood by council that it's in
It's good information.
its rawest form.
I think being that some council members have it and some don't, it'd probably be good at least have all council have the same information.
We could solve that.
Thanks.
So I will advise council, we have an option of not making a motion to extend. But think about that. So staff reports. There are no staff reports this week, but are there specific questions to staff?
Are we still on committee of the whole?
Yes, we are still on committee of the whole.
Okay. Do we,
Staff reports is outside committee of the whole.
Well, I moved on to staff reports after that. Unless you have another item for committee of the whole?
yeah,
Okay.
okay. So I would like to propose that we get initiative and referendum pushed into F&A to consider it, to bring it back to city council.
So I have a motion for F&A to pick up consideration of referendum.
Initiative and referendum adopted.
Initiative and referendum. Do I have a second on the motion? Okay, at this stage, I don't have council pushing this into F&A.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other items for committee of the whole? All right, any questions of staff? If there are no questions for staff, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hold on.
Oh, wait a
Mayor
minute.
Pro Tem.
Oh.
Hold on.
Citizen comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. There are citizens wishing to make comments before conclusion of tonight's meeting. So Anna had her hand up way up first. Come on, Charlie.
First of all, I want to tell you that as I'm listening for the Salary Commission, I think some of you were hesitant because it might reflect badly on to the citizens. And I've been coming to these meetings for a long, long time. And I want to tell you that I appreciate all the time that you give. And I think it's justified as a citizen that you do look at the salary, because I know the time you guys are putting in here. And I'm hoping the citizens aren't going to be upset with me that I'm saying this, but you know, if the other cities are paying their council members more, then certainly I think that you deserve that also. So, thank you.
Anna, you wish to come up?
Anna Sotelo, 7713 Center Boulevard Southeast. I just want to clarify, because I think my question got completely deviated into something else. And my question, just to refer to it again, was the results of the CAI retail study, not what the city's doing with it. What was that study? What did it cost? Did it get finished? I'm confused because, like I said, the original draft was in October 25th, 2016. It went to EDC on 1/17/17. It went to revised draft on 3/16/17. And it went to the CDC on 3/20/17. Why didn't those meetings start happening until August? That's my question. Why did it take so long? And when I didn't mention the leakage, I was just saying that all of those other studies were done in 2002, 6, 7, and 2011. One of them was based specifically about leakage. But my question is about the CAI retail study. And why did it take so long? Why didn't it get done in 2015? And what are the results, not from the city, what they did with it? What did CAI give us back? I don't, what the city's doing with it. And as far as it being with the Lizzie's contract, no, because the actual workshops happen in August. In March, there was no problem with Lizzie or anything. So I guess I'm just very confused by that. I'm more confused by the city's answer.
Mark, can you take the action to get with Anna, and I'm not asking for a report out now, but get with Anna to go through that? Okay. Other comments? If not now, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for tonight.
So moved.
Second. All right. Unless anybody's opposed, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.